The garden is quiet. Vivian walks carefully along the stone path. She notices that the place is empty, and relief fills her heart. She believes this is finally her chance to escape. She moves slowly, trying not to draw attention to herself. Just as she thinks everything is going smoothly, a cold voice suddenly calls out and asks what she is doing there. Her steps freeze. She turns and sees him standing behind her. He is the second prince of the Astaroth Empire and the Archduke of the North, Aslan Reshef Astaroth. He is known throughout the Empire as a cold and ruthless man. Many people whisper that his nature feels closer to that of a wild beast than a human being. His presence alone makes the air heavy. He calmly asks if she wishes to take a walk. He adds that she should have called him first so they could take a pleasant stroll together. His tone sounds gentle, but she knows better than to believe it. Vivian forces herself to smile. She explains that he seemed busy. He replies that he can always make time for her. She expected something like this to happen. That is why she prepared an excuse earlier. She quickly mentions that she received an urgent letter from her sister. She hopes this explanation will allow her to leave without suspicion. Aslan looks at her carefully. He comments that she must have a very close relationship with her sister. Then he calmly asks, "Since when has the crown prince become her sister?" Her heart drops. She looks down at the letter in her hand and finally notices the royal seal stamped on it. It carries the mark of the crown prince, Johannes. Confusion fills her mind. She has no idea why she even has a letter from him, especially when Johannes and Aslan are clearly at odds with each other. Before she can explain, Aslan takes the letter from her hand and tears it apart without hesitation. He tells her they should forget about it and return to the bedroom. He reminds her that she promised to spend the day with him. She suddenly begins to cough. He asks if he startled her. She shakes her head and says it is only a little cold today, and she's fine. He responds that they should go back and rest. She cannot afford to grow sicker, especially with their wedding day approaching. He then asks her to confirm that she is looking forward to becoming his wife. Vivian remains silent. Inside, she feels defeated. She thinks she has failed again. The opportunity to escape slips through her fingers, and she fears she may never get another chance. Her current situation did not begin here. It started long ago with a poorly written will and an unexpected end. In her previous life, she died in an accident. Somehow, after that tragic end, she awakens inside the body of a character from a novel she once read. The story tells of a hero who defeated an archdevil. However, the hero's descendants were cursed. They would eventually transform into beasts. The male lead of the novel is Aslan. As a member of the Imperial family, he carries the curse as well. Although he is born human, he is destined to transform into a black lion. His fate is tragic and painful. In the original story, his fiancée knows nothing about the curse. She only cares about his power and handsome appearance. That selfish and cruel fiancée is the villainess of the story. Her name is Vivian Eleonora, and now she is that Vivian. According to the novel, Aslan eventually grows tired of Vivian's terrible behavior. He falls in love with her older half-sister, the true female lead. Filled with jealousy and anger, Vivian tries to harm her sister. In the end, Aslan personally eliminated her. Fortunately, she takes over Vivian's body before the original story begins. She decides to stay quiet and keep to herself. When the time comes, she plans to step aside peacefully and wish Aslan and the female lead happiness together. But there is one detail the novel never mentions. Vivian is slowly dying from tuberculosis. The second chance at life comes with a cruel condition. She only has about 1 year left to live. No one stands beside her. No one cares about her illness. All she has is her inheritance and limited time. Since her life will end soon anyway, she decides to use part of her wealth to secure a comfortable future for herself. She writes a will stating that she may no longer remain in this world. She claims she will live under a new identity and asks that no one search for her or wait for her return. She leaves all her property and lands to her fiancé, Prince Aslan. Her plan is simple. She will quietly disappear and spend her remaining days at a luxury resort. If the villainess leaves the story early, the main characters can fall in love without obstacles. Everything seems to go smoothly at first. However, while traveling, she is suddenly stopped by thieves. They block her carriage and demand that she hand over everything inside. They mock her and tell her to accept her unlucky day. She calmly agrees that it is indeed unlucky, but not for her. She takes out a sword. The thieves laugh at her and admire her courage, but they believe she cannot defeat them. They underestimate her completely. They quickly regret that mistake. Vivian is from House Eleonora, the most prominent military family in the Empire. Her skills are not weak. Within a short time, she defeats them all. Afterward, she begins coughing again. As she tries to steady herself, she suddenly hears a low growl coming from somewhere nearby. She looks around and notices a strange house standing alone in the middle of the forest. It feels out of place. Curiosity pushes her forward. She enters the house carefully. Inside, she finds a cage covered with fabric. When she pulls the cloth away, her breath stops. A black lion stares back at her. Its fur is dark and thick. Its eyes shine with a deep golden color. She recognizes them immediately. It is Aslan. She stares at him in shock. She wonders what he is doing here in his lion form. She also questions whether this happened because she failed to follow the original storyline. Perhaps her decision to avoid him has changed events. She never wanted to get involved with him again. Yet she cannot simply stand there and watch him die, trapped like a beast that cannot even speak. No matter what happens in the future, he does not deserve such an end. She brings an axe closer to the cage. Before breaking it open, she silently hopes he will let her leave afterward. Then she strikes. The cage breaks apart. The lion immediately roars, shaking the entire house. A few days earlier, in the grand manor of Aslan, he sits quietly in his study, staring at the will that belongs to Vivian. The document seems small, yet it interrupts his work completely. Frustration gnaws at him. Diego stands before him, composed and respectful, but he reminds Aslan that it's not just any piece of paper. Aslan glances at him, expression dark, and remarks that he knows this. He thinks Vivian is probably doing it simply to grab his attention, to pull him into her schemes once again. Diego nods solemnly. This time, it seems true. The physician from House Eleonora had informed him that Vivian had contracted tuberculosis. The disease has advanced so far that very little can be done to help her. Aslan considers this quietly, realizing that the shock of the recent events may be what's causing her to behave like someone entirely different from the Vivian he once knew. He frowns and instructs Diego to burn the will immediately. He doesn't want the Emperor discovering it and using it as a weapon against him. But Diego informs him that His Majesty has already ordered a thorough investigation into Lady Vivian's documents. Aslan's jaw tightens. He knows the Crown Prince must have heard about it too, and Johannes will not let this slide. The Crown Prince will stop at nothing to pin the blame on him. Anger and urgency surge within him. Aslan decides he must act quickly. He orders Diego to find Vivian immediately and bring her to him before she loses the fight against her illness. He thinks to himself, not for the first time, that Vivian has been a constant nuisance from start to finish. 5 days later, Aslan leads his men into the forest in search of her. Diego hesitates, warning him that the southern forest is dangerous during the rainy season. Aslan's eyes narrow, and he replies that danger is the least of their concerns. It has already been 5 days since they began searching, and time is slipping away. He allows them to wait at the base of the mountain if they are too fearful. He rides alone. As he moves through the forest, stepping down from his horse, a sense of unease creeps over him. He wonders if he is being followed, if assassins sent by Johannes are trailing him. The thought of anyone daring to oppose him fuels a cold, burning rage. He thinks of shredding anyone who dares cross his path. Suddenly, a voice cuts through the tension. It calls his name and claims to be Aslan's true self. The voice urges him to embrace the hideous, bloodthirsty beast within him, to spend the rest of his life drowning in regret and despair. Aslan yells, furious and resisting the voice, reminding himself that he cannot collapse here in the forest. A memory surfaces unbidden. He recalls Vivian questioning him about breaking their engagement. He affirms it, coldly stating that it means she will never rise to the rank of Archduchess for as long as she lives. As he begins to turn away, she coughs, calling him back. The memory leaves him unsettled. He wonders why he is being shown this, if it is meant to make him feel guilt over what happened to her, over the fact that she is now unwell. He questions Astaroth itself, as if the voice intends to throw his soul into the pit of despair alongside his body. When he opens his eyes, a presence comes into view. He roars instinctively, but the tension fades when he recognizes her. It is Vivian. Confusion rushes through him. How did she end up here? Did she lock him in this place? But he quickly discards the thought. She may have saved him, yet he doubts she is strong enough to protect herself completely. A cold realization hits him. The Astaroth curse is a secret of the highest order. If she has uncovered the truth about him, he should remove any risk she poses. Yet he cannot leave her alone in this dangerous place. After all, she is still his fiancée. With a mix of caution and determination, he carries her to a nearby cave as rain begins to fall. Soon, Vivian stirs, her eyes open. She turns her head and sees Aslan close to her. She wonders why she is here with him. Slowly, she removes her hand from his body, and that is when she notices blood on her fingers. Her heart tightens. Without wasting time, she tears a piece of cloth and carefully ties it around his wound to stop the bleeding. As she works, she wonders who could have injured him like this. She also wonders if he is already used to getting hurt because of his dangerous life. Even so, She quietly thanks him in her heart for bringing her to safety despite being injured himself. When she looks up, she sees him staring at her. She lets out a small laugh and lightly asks if he has any other wounds. Her eyes then move to the strange mark on his chest. It looks different from what she remembers in the novel. The shape and color are not exactly the same as the description she once read. She tells him to remain inside the cave while she looks around to check their surroundings. But the moment she stands, he rises too. She quickly realizes he has no intention of letting her go alone. As she glances again at the mark on his chest, understanding slowly settles in her mind. This is the imprinting cave. In the original story, this is the place where Aslan and the female lead first formed their bond. They were trapped here because of heavy rain. During that night, they shared deep feelings, and crimson marks appeared on both of their chests. Through that mark, Aslan could keep his human mind even when he transformed into a beast. Vivian's heart feels uneasy. She wonders why he is here with her instead of the female lead. Things are clearly not going according to the original storyline. Before she can think further, voices echo from outside the cave. Someone says that according to a magic tool, he is definitely inside. Vivian immediately understands. They are talking about Aslan. The men want to capture him alive and deliver him to the crown prince. Fear rises inside her. She turns to him and urgently signals for him to run. But instead of escaping, he steps forward and attacks the intruders. His movements are fast and fierce. Vivian grabs a thick tree branch nearby. Anger burns inside her as she wonders how they dare torment a poor creature that cannot even speak in this form. The men are surprised to see her. They question who she is and quickly decide that they cannot leave any witnesses behind. One of them moves toward her with his sword raised. She does not hesitate. With sharp movements, she knocks him down. His sword slips from his hand and lands near her feet. She silently thanks herself because her earlier calculations were correct. However, she soon notices that there are more enemies than she expected. She picks up the fallen sword. If they want to fight, they will meet her blade. But suddenly the men begin to retreat. Fear spreads among them as they realize they cannot win. They run away into the forest. Vivian lets out a weak laugh. The moment the danger passes, her strength leaves her body. She collapses to her knees and begins coughing heavily. Her chest burns. She realizes she has pushed herself too far again. Still, she reminds herself that she has already written her will. She is prepared for her final outcome. She thought she was ready to disappear peacefully. Aslan begins to walk toward her. His large beast form slowly transforms back into his human shape. Without saying a word, he bends down and lifts her into his arms as the rain continues to fall. He wonders why she risked herself for him. The Vivian he knew before was not like this. That Vivian cared more about power than love. She was only interested in her own benefit and status. That was the Vivian Eleonora he had always known. He tells himself that she should have remained that way. It would have been easier. If she had stayed selfish and proud, she would not be constantly on his mind. Yet now, an overwhelming desire to get closer to her grows inside him. He cannot understand it. He wonders what this strange feeling is and questions what she has done to him to make his heart restless. After some time, Vivian slowly opens her eyes. The ceiling above her is unfamiliar. She looks around and realizes she is in a large, luxurious room. The furniture is elegant and everything around her looks expensive. Standing nearby are Aslan and another man. The man speaks with a careful tone and explains that there is no proper treatment for her condition. He says she may not last beyond a year. His words are calm, but the meaning is heavy. Aslan's expression darkens immediately. He sounds frustrated, reminding the man that he was brought here because he's known as the best doctor in the South. Yet, this is all he has to say. Vivian, still weak, thinks Aslan might lose his temper and harm the doctor. She quickly calls out to him. He turns at once, surprised to see that she is awake. He moves closer to her bedside. She asks where she is. He tells her they are in his manor in the south, and she should not worry but rest. He apologizes for making her stay in such a place and says they will return to the capital once she feels better. Then he adds that they will get married immediately. She suddenly sits up in shock. He gently tells her to lie back down and rest a little longer. She asks what is happening. He explains that he knows she has always looked forward to this marriage and says she should not worry about the preparations because he will handle everything himself. Then he hands her a document and asks her to sign it. Vivian feels confused. She cannot understand this situation. She clearly remembers that Aslan once disliked Vivian. If he marries her now, what will happen to the female lead? The story is moving in a completely different direction. She remains silent as thoughts rush through her mind. Aslan tells her that he will stay by her side from now on so she will not be alone like before. Hearing this, she grows even more uneasy. She believes he is trying to bind her to himself with a marriage certificate, even if he does not truly care for her. She concludes that the only reason he is going this far is because he suspects she knows about his weakness, the Astaroth curse. He must want to keep her close so he can watch her carefully. She tells herself firmly that she cannot marry him. Finally, she asks why he is doing this. She reminds him that she does not have much time left, and that their engagement was only a political arrangement. It would be pointless for both of them to rush into marriage. She quietly asks him to allow her to spend her remaining days alone, but he replies that he will do whatever it takes to save her. At that moment, Diego gently reminds him of his duties waiting elsewhere. Aslan glances outside and realizes how late it has become. He tells her they will continue the discussion the next day before leaving the room. Vivian watches him as he walks away. In his private chamber, Diego asks if he is truly fine. He carried Vivian all the way back despite his own wound. Aslan answers that he is fine. Then he gives a new order. He wants Diego to investigate everything about House Eleonora, including their hidden matters. He wants to know why they neglected Vivian until her condition became severe and why they kept it secret. Meanwhile, Vivian lies alone in the quiet room. She wonders why everything is happening so suddenly and why there is such urgency. She thinks about the dream gate she once hoped to see again and questions whether she ever will. She feels as if her peaceful plan has fallen apart. Now, instead of disappearing quietly, she may have to spend the rest of her days walking carefully around Aslan, always cautious of his thoughts and actions. A knock sounds at the door. A maid asks for permission to enter. Vivian allows it. The maid steps inside and informs her that His Highness has requested her presence at breakfast the next morning. They will discuss the marriage certificate then. Vivian's heart grows heavy as unease settles deep within her chest. The next morning, 3 maids carefully dress Vivian in fine clothes. As they work, she quietly thinks about Aslan. She cannot understand why he went out of his way to save her. His words from the night before echo in her mind. He said he would do whatever it takes. Halfway through the novel she once read, there was a brief mention of a treatment for tuberculosis. The cure was being developed by one of Aslan's close acquaintances. It was rare and could only be obtained through Aslan himself. Remembering that detail now makes her heart beat faster. She wonders if she can survive long enough for that treatment to be completed. The maids step back and admire their work. They compliment her appearance, saying she looks beautiful. She thanks them politely. Soon, they escort her to the dining room. As she walks down the long hallway, she thinks deeply about what would benefit her most. She needs to protect herself while also avoiding being controlled by Aslan. She knows she must act carefully. Breakfast begins calmly. The atmosphere is quiet but not tense. Surprisingly, Aslan does not bring up the marriage immediately. This makes her feel slightly relieved. Perhaps it is better if he takes things slowly. After some time, the head chef approaches and respectfully asks if the meal is to her liking. She says it is. The chef thanks her warmly. He gently takes her hand and leans closer as if to show respect. At once, Aslan calls out to him. His tone is sharp. He comments that the meat appears burnt and questions whether the chef truly knows how to grill a steak properly. He even suggests that he is starting to doubt if the man is worthy of being the head chef. The chef apologizes deeply. Aslan then states that breakfast is over and instructs everyone to leave. The room soon becomes empty, leaving only him and Vivian. Without delay, he brings out the marriage document again. He holds a pen in one hand. As he reaches toward her, his fingers brush against her skin, causing her to flinch. He apologizes, saying he did not intend to rush her, but he can no longer hold himself back. To her, this feels like pressure. She wonders whether he is truly a prince or someone trying to trap her like a loan shark. Just as he is about to finish, she suddenly stops him and slaps his hand away. He looks at her in surprise. She quickly asks if he is all right. He calmly replies that he is fine and that this is nothing compared to what she has endured. She gathers her courage and asks him directly why he is doing this. She admits that it is true she once desperately wanted to marry him, but now she has no such desire. Her only wish is to spend the remaining year of her life peacefully and quietly. Instead of arguing, he flips the document over and begins writing something on the back. He explains that this is now a contract. In it, he vows to use all of Astaroth's resources and intelligence to treat her condition. If after 1 year she is still alive, she will sign the marriage certificate on the other side. She asks what will happen if she does not survive. He firmly states that such a thing will not happen. He also promises to take every precaution to protect her, ensuring she does not fall victim to any other illness or accident. She listens carefully, though doubt remains in her heart. Yet she cannot ignore something important. He has had many chances to remove her from his path, but he did not. If he is going to such lengths to persuade her, it means he cannot easily dispose of his own fiancée. Slowly, she makes a decision. She will take advantage of this arrangement and wait until the cure mentioned in the novel becomes available. If she can endure until then, she may truly have a chance. She accepts the contract. Still, a strange feeling settles within her, as though she has stepped into the role of prey without realizing it. From that day on, she remains at Aslan's manor. Inside her room, she secretly prepares an emergency bag in case she needs to escape. She knows Aslan's mood can change, and if she offends him, her safety might disappear. As she finishes packing, there is a knock at the door. Aslan steps inside and remarks that he called her earlier, but she did not respond. His eyes slowly scan the room. He notices the slight disorder and questions why the bedroom looks unsettled, almost as if she was preparing to flee. Vivian steadies her breathing. She knows she must stay calm if she wants to get out of this situation safely. Vivian quickly apologizes for the messy room and explains that she was only searching for something. Aslan asks what she was looking for. She tells him it was clothes. She wanted to step outside for some fresh air, but there are not many outfits that fit her thin body anymore. He looks at her calmly and says that whether she dresses up or not makes no difference to him. In his eyes, she's always beautiful. She pauses, wondering if she heard him correctly. For a moment, she questions what he just said. Before she can think too deeply about it, he turns to Diego and orders him to cancel all his plans for the day. He announces that he is going into town with Vivian. She looks surprised and tells him he does not have to go through such trouble. He insists. He even adds that he will act as her bodyguard. She is not pleased by this idea. Still, there is no room for refusal. Soon, they leave the manor together. As they enter the busy streets, she looks around at the crowd. Shops are open, people are talking, and children are running about. She wonders how long it has been since she last enjoyed a proper outing. When she thinks carefully, she realizes she never truly had the chance to live freely. First, she was confined at home. Even after running away, she moved from one problem to another. She cannot even call her current situation freedom. A quiet question forms in her heart. Will everything truly be all right? Her eyes soon catch something shining at a nearby stall. There are beautiful stones displayed neatly. She asks about them, and the seller explains that they are magic stones. Before she can respond, Aslan calmly says he will buy them all for her. She quickly refuses. She explains that she does not have mana, so she cannot use them anyway. The seller adds that she could still keep them as souvenirs, yet she feels uneasy. She wonders why Aslan is so eager to spend money on her. Instead of the stones, her gaze shifts to a sword displayed at another stall. She picks it up and holds it naturally, as if it belongs in her hand. The people nearby stare in surprise at how skillfully she handles it. Even Aslan looks impressed. Inside, she tells herself that he should observe her carefully. She will not allow him to take advantage of her. Aslan, on the other hand, watches her closely. He thinks she shines brightly in moments like this, just as she did in the cave. The memory lingers in his mind. Suddenly, a loud cry for help breaks the calm atmosphere. Someone shouts about thieves. Vivian hesitates. She is trying to hide her identity, and interfering in other people's problems has only caused her trouble before. She tells herself that the city guards will handle it. But then she hears the desperate voice again. The victim cries that the thieves have stolen his mother's keepsake. Without thinking further, she runs toward the commotion. She sees a man about to strike the one accusing him. She steps forward and blocks him, firmly telling him to return what he took. The thief swings toward her and warns her to stay out of it. Before she can react further, everyone suddenly turns their attention to Aslan. His expression is cold with anger. He questions how the man dares raise a hand against Vivian. He notes that even he treats her with the greatest care. In the next moment, he moves toward the thief with force. Soon the matter is settled. Vivian retrieves the stolen item and returns it to a young lady. The woman thanks her deeply and explains that the keepsake is proof that she is her father's true daughter. Without it, she would not be believed. The grateful lady asks for Vivian's name, but before she can answer, the city guards arrive. Not wanting attention, Vivian quickly grabs Aslan's hand and pulls him away, saying they should leave. Behind them, the young lady watches with admiration. She considers Vivian her savior and says she will meet her again someday. As they walk away, Aslan softly calls her name. Only then does she realize she is still holding his hand. She quickly lets go. He points out something else instead. Earlier, she addressed him by his name rather than calling him Your Highness. He suggests that she continue calling him by his name. She looks at him in surprise and repeats it carefully. He smiles and confirms that he likes it. He leans slightly closer to her, then says they should return to the manor since it is getting late. As they walk back, she wonders why he wants her to call him by his name. The request feels simple, yet it carries meaning she cannot fully understand. Elsewhere, the Crown Prince observes the situation from afar. He comments that his younger brother certainly has unusual habits. Still, he notes that at least this new development will keep Aslan occupied for a while. Vivian recalls the moment Aslan asked her to call him by his name. The memory lingers softly in her mind. She thinks that if every day passes like that, calm, almost gentle, then she can endure this whole year. She tells herself there will be no more chaos, no more traps waiting around the corner. Yet today, she sits stiffly beside the crown prince. Earlier that morning, she receives permission from Aslan to go out. He insists on sending his best guard with her. She declines, saying she wants to walk freely, just once, without anyone watching her every step. He hesitates, then finally permits it. She boards a carriage alone. On the way, she notices the road feels unfamiliar. She leans forward and tells the coachman they are not heading toward the bank. He calmly replies that they are taking a shortcut. She frowns but remains silent. After a long while, they finally stop. It takes far too long for a simple shortcut. She steps out, confused, staring at the grand building before her. Then everything changes. She is seized before she can react. Now she sits beside Johannes Friedrich Astaroth, the first prince, the crown prince, the very man known as the main villain of the story she once read. He smiles faintly and says it must be fate at work. The coachman simply made a wrong turn, he claims. Since she is already here, she should relax and enjoy the visit. She does not believe a single word. In her mind, she connects the pieces quickly. Johannes is Aslan's older brother, the emperor's legitimate heir. Unlike Aslan, whose mother was once a maid of the inner chambers, Johannes is born to rule. The Imperial palace once used dark magic to pass the terrible curse of Astaroth onto Aslan. That curse is unstable, like a ticking bomb that could explode at any time. It holds a power capable of summoning demons and destroying everything. Of course, Johannes would see Aslan as something dangerous, something to control. Vivian understands now. She is here because of Aslan. Johannes gestures toward the wide blue ocean before them. He says he often visits the south to admire the view. The sea calms him, he claims. This place is precious to him. Now it has become even more special, because he can share tea here with a dear friend. He thanks her softly. She feels the hidden meaning in his words. She politely excuses herself, saying she feels unwell. He immediately responds that the Imperial family cares deeply about her health. He would like to introduce her to an Imperial doctor. He tilts his head and asks whether she feels neglected. Is she receiving enough care from Aslan? She senses the trap. He is trying to plant doubt. She calmly answers that she understands Aslan. He avoids using his power for personal matters because he does not wish to abuse his position. Despite rumors, he holds strong ideals. As she finishes speaking, she suddenly hears a soft meow beside her. A small cat brushes against her dress. Johannes laughs lightly and says he has heard she is good with animals. She gently picks up the cat. In the novel, Vivian was known for this strange gift. She strokes its fur, and it relaxes instantly. Johannes says the beast in his care has been difficult lately, and he hopes she can help. She smiles faintly and says the cat in her arms seems well behaved. He says he is not referring to the cat. Before she can respond, a familiar voice cuts through the air. Aslan walks toward them, eyes cold and sharp. He says she is far too extraordinary for someone like him, and certainly not someone Johannes should drag here against her will. The tension thickens. Johannes stands and tells his younger brother to take good care of her. It would be troublesome, he adds, if a filthy beast were to set its sights on her. He steps closer to Vivian and softly invites her to tea again next time. She dislikes how he makes it sound as if she came willingly. Suddenly, her chest tightens. She coughs, her body trembling. Aslan immediately lifts her into his arms. His voice lowers dangerously. If anything happens to her, he will not forgive his brother. She tells Aslan to put her down, embarrassed and weak. Johannes sighs in mock disappointment. He prepared all this because he heard she likes cats. She tries to say she understands him, but he interrupts, smiling faintly. It seems, he says, that she has already fallen for another beast. Inside, Johannes thinks differently. He believes she is mistaken about Aslan. In his eyes, Aslan is nothing more than a creature ruled by instinct, craving power and wealth, not love. He wonders quietly what she will do when she finally sees the truth, and he waits eagerly for that day. Now they are back in Aslan's grand manor. He informs her that the doctor says her condition has worsened because she overexerted herself. She should not have gone out alone. She needs full rest. Aslan's jaw tightens. He says it is his fault. He should not have allowed her to leave without protection. His voice grows firm as he adds that he will never let her go out alone again. She tries to protest, but he stops her. He already knew Johannes had come south for a short visit, but he never imagined his brother would set his sights on Vivian. When Johannes tried to turn her against him, rage swallowed him whole. For a brief, dangerous moment, he even considered wiping everyone out and taking her back by force. He wanted Johannes to never see daylight again, to pay for deceiving him. But then she defended him. She believed in him. That memory cools his anger, yet it stirs something deeper. He suddenly remembers something from the past. His own cruel words. He once declared that Vivian would never be Archduchess for as long as she lived. He wonders who else spoke such filthy things to her. Who made her feel unwanted. Now quietly, he asks if she hates him. Then he quickly tells her to pretend she did not hear that. But she answers anyway. She says she does not hate him. He looks at her sharply and asks why. Inside, she thinks he is annoying and frightening. But she does not say that aloud. Before she can explain further, a cough interrupts her. Her body shakes again. Diego steps forward and says she needs complete and uninterrupted rest. Aslan nods stiffly. He leaves her in their care. As he walks down the long corridor, her words echo in his mind. She does not hate him. But what if she learns the truth? That he is cursed. That a demon's mark runs through his blood. That he is nothing but a wretched beast wearing a human face. Would she still say she does not hate him then? He lets out a quiet breath. He thinks he is truly repulsive. Yet all he wants is to keep her close. To lock her away where no one else can look at her. No one else can touch her. No one else can even whisper her name. He wonders what this burning hunger inside him is. Then he understands. It is a desire. In her room, Vivian stares at the ceiling. Because of the Crown Prince's actions, she knows she will now live under constant watch. Guards, servants, eyes everywhere. When she thinks about the earlier scene with Johannes, something feels strange. In the novel, that ocean meeting did happen, but not with her. It was supposed to be the heroine, not Vivian. Her heart beats faster. Everything that should be happening to the female lead is happening to her instead. This is not a coincidence. If events continue to shift like this, what will happen next? A few days later, a messenger arrives from the Imperial Palace. Aslan reads the letter, surprise flashing across his face. The marriage between him and Vivian Eleonora is not permitted. His expression darkens instantly. Soon after, he informs her that they are summoned to the capital. Anger radiates from him, heavy and sharp. She gently tries to calm him, though inside her mind races. The next part of the story clearly takes place in the capital, but she was supposed to remain in the manor recovering. She is stepping into the heroine's path again. She tells herself she should stop interfering. No matter what the original story says, if the Emperor orders her to do something, she will obey. Soon they are traveling north. During the journey, she asks if they are heading straight to the Imperial Palace. Aslan says no. They will stop at Blackford first. She realizes that is his territory in the north, his true domain. She says she has never been there. He asks almost lightly if she wants him to give her a personal tour. When they arrive, she is stunned. The estate in Blackford is even more lavish than the southern manor. Tall towers rise against the cold sky. The halls shine with dark marble and silver light. He tells her she will need to get used to it. Then he shows her to her room. She steps inside and freezes. One entire wall is missing. Or rather, it is replaced by an open arch that connects directly to another chamber. His chamber. He calmly says it is natural for the Archduke and his wife to share connected rooms. She cannot believe what she hears. Does he trust her so little that he must watch her so openly? She is exhausted. She only wants silence. Seeing her reaction, he quietly apologizes, but he hopes she understands. He reaches out and gently caresses her face. His touch is warm but possessive. He says he does not want her out of his sight, not even for a moment. Then his tone brightens slightly. She has come all this way, so they will celebrate her first visit to Blackford with a grand feast. He takes her hand and says they should go. She stares at his faint smile and wonders why he looks pleased while she feels like she is crumbling inside. If she did not know he once eliminated Vivian in the novel, she might think he is in love with her. Suddenly, she pulls her hand away. He softly says her name. She quickly explains that her hands are sweaty. He looks at her for a second, then gently takes her hand again. That evening, after dinner, they took a quiet walk through the gardens of Blackford. Aslan says the night air is refreshing. She agrees softly. Inside, however, she longs for a little space. Lately, he has been closer than before. His hand lingers longer. His gaze follows her more closely. She wonders if it is just her imagination, or if he truly has grown more possessive. After a while, he asks how she likes Blackford. She responds that the estate is grand and impressive. The halls are wide, the ceilings high. The attendants are kind, and that makes her stay pleasant. He turns to her slightly and asks what she means by kind. She explains that in her old household, the servants often kept their distance from her. They treated her carefully, as if she might shatter, or as if she carried something dangerous. She thinks to herself that tuberculosis is not even contagious in this world, yet people still avoid her. He says nothing, but she feels the air grow tight between them. She realizes she should not have mentioned it. She quickly assures him she is fine. He replies that he is not fine with it. Disobedience toward her, he says, is disobedience toward him. She will be his wife. Even if the Imperial Palace stands in his way, it will not stop him from protecting her. His words surprise her. She did not expect him to sound so determined. Then she notices servants walking nearby. She suddenly understands. He wants them to hear. He wants the message to spread. Still, she cannot help feeling a little guilty. Her will and sudden disappearance have already caused political trouble for him. He tells her not to mind whatever she hears in the capital. He will handle everything. She gently tells him not to push himself. If marriage becomes too difficult, they can find another way. Even so, everyone will see that he has been sincere as her betrothed. That is enough. She says it is getting cold and suggests they return inside. As they walk back, he wonders if she thinks his sincerity is a burden. He remembers the pain he caused her before. Perhaps it is too soon to win her heart. Later, she lies in bed. A thin curtain separates her chamber from his connected room. She knows he is just beyond it. She turns onto her side and closes her eyes. The meeting with the Emperor is only a few days away. She hopes nothing goes wrong. Sometime later, a faint noise wakes her. She sits up. She softly asks if Aslan is there. No answer. After a moment of hesitation, she rises and parts the curtain. She walks closer and asks if he is in pain. Is it because they are in the capital? Minerva, the capital of the Empire, is known as the sacred place where the hero once defeated the demon Astaroth long ago. She wonders if the divine power lingering in the city is affecting the demonic force inside him. She says she will call a doctor. He catches her wrist gently and stops her. He says he simply has not been in the capital for a long time. He will feel better after a few days. Then, quietly, he asks her to stay. He says he feels a little dizzy. She blinks, confused. Does being in Minerva make him more clingy? She tells him there is nothing she can really do just by standing there. But before she can move, he leans forward and rests his head against her chest. She freezes. This is awkward. She wonders what the heroine would have done in this scene. In the novel, the heroine once sang him a lullaby. She does not know any songs from this world, so she simply pats his back gently. After a few slow breaths, he falls asleep. In the morning, she wakes up feeling heavy and sleepy. He tells her to rest a little more. She jolts upright and questions why he is here. Then she remembers. She stayed with him. She asks carefully if nothing inappropriate happened between them. He smiles faintly and says that is debatable. Her eyes widen. Just then, Diego knocks and enters. He begins to report about House Eleonora, but when he sees them, he pauses and apologizes for disturbing them. Aslan tells him to continue. Diego says 2 messengers arrived from House Eleonora. They insist on taking Lady Vivian back to Eleonora Manor. Aslan's expression hardens. They come without warning, and now they want to take his wife away? Diego continues. Duke Eleonora demands her immediate return because her half-sister has come home. Vivian's breath catches. Iris. The heroine of the novel is back. However, Aslan tells Diego to drive them out because Vivian has long since cut ties with her family. Diego notes that they are very adamant, but Aslan insists that they be removed by all means, and that Diego should eliminate anyone who refuses to obey. Vivian interrupts, thanking him for defending her, but stating that she would like to see her sister. He remarks that she is just her half-sister, yet Vivian insists that she is curious about her. Besides, she caused quite a fuss when she ran away, and she feels she should take responsibility and settle things properly. He notes that she is far too soft-hearted. She laughs at his words and insists that he accompany her, explaining that if they show her father the strength of their relationship, he won't be able to scold her much. She pleads, and after a moment of silence, he agrees. Soon, they step outside and face the Eleonora messengers. Aslan glares at them, and they tremble before greeting him and Vivian. He informs them that he will accompany Vivian on the journey. They attempt to decline, but he warns them, and they accept. On the carriage, Vivian asks how he is feeling and apologizes for asking him to come. He remarks that it is better this way, and that he wanted to see the situation at Eleonora Manor for himself. He reminds her to be careful not to strain herself. Vivian notes that everything is going smoothly. If it continues like this, the male and female lead of the original story will finally meet. Since Aslan is watching her closely, all she can do is wait for him and the female lead to connect. She must survive until the tuberculosis cure is ready, and to do that, She has to divert Aslan's attention toward the female lead. In the novel, Iris was so kind-hearted that she pitied Vivian to the very end. Vivian maps out in her mind how she wants things to unfold. Aslan will say that she knew about the curse all along and decide to eliminate her. But Iris will intervene, noting that if it weren't for Vivian, he would never have met her and the curse would remain hidden. Then Aslan will agree and instruct Vivian to take the cure and leave. She concludes that this plan is perfect. Meanwhile, Aslan wonders what she is thinking. At Eleonora Manor, Duke Eleonora notices that Iris isn't eating. She answers that she is just considering whether she wants to be here. He remarks that it is nonsense, stating that as her father, he welcomes her with open arms. She acknowledges that she is happy to see him, but worries that, as an illegitimate child, she might bring him disgrace. He admits that her mother was a maid, but assures her that he loves her with all his heart. He regrets not being able to stay by her mother's side until the end, which is why he wants to do for Iris what he could not do for her mother. She is surprised, feeling glad that her father is now in her life, though a part of her remains uneasy. She recalls the woman who helped retrieve her stolen keepsake and the relief it brought her, wondering how she is now. Duke Eleonora informs Iris that Vivian will arrive today. Surprised, she stands immediately, noting that she hasn't made any preparations. She quickly finishes her meal and makes herself presentable. Her father calls her name, warning that Vivian is as conniving and treacherous as her deceased mother. No one can predict what harm she might cause, so Iris must remain cautious. Still, Iris resolves not to think poorly of her younger sister until she meets her herself. Duke Eleonora praises her heart of gold and remarks that Prince Aslan should see what a perfect bride she could make. He then informs her that he intends to make her the wife of Aslan, the second prince of the empire. She questions this, noting that Aslan is engaged to Vivian. A servant enters, intending to inform the Duke of Vivian's arrival, but he silences him, noting that he is eating. The servant apologizes and adds that Vivian has arrived with Prince Aslan. Duke Eleonora's eyes widen in surprise when he hears the words, Prince Aslan, though doubt clouds his expression. He questions quietly why Aslan would come all this way for Vivian, wondering if it's truly necessary. After a moment, he turns to Iris and notes that this might actually work in their favor, that perhaps the engagement could be arranged sooner than they initially expected. With that, he instructs her to come along and greet His Highness. As they enter the grand hall, the servants bow deeply, their movements precise and respectful as they welcome Aslan and Vivian. Vivian can hardly believe the sight. She never imagined receiving such an elaborate greeting at Eleonora Manor and wonders if it is the sheer weight of Aslan's authority that compels everyone to behave this way. Meanwhile, Aslan's sharp gaze observes the flurry of servants scrambling to attend to them, and he frowns slightly, questioning why they are so eager to greet them despite already knowing of Vivian's arrival. Vivian chuckles at his words and, curious, asks one of the servants about Iris. The servant bows apologetically and explains that Iris is currently having a meal and cannot be seen at this exact moment. Aslan's eyes narrow. He questions whether they summoned a sick lady only to make her wait, his tone firm. The servant quickly bows, pleading for forgiveness, and promises to inform Duke Eleonora immediately. At that moment, Vivian's eyes catch a familiar figure, a young lady she helped recover her stolen keepsake. It is Iris. Iris's face lights up as she refers to Vivian as her savior, and recognition dawns on Vivian. This is the female lead from the novel, and for a moment she feels a mix of surprise and confusion. An overwhelming desire to get closer to her grows of their meeting in the south and expresses how happy she is to see her again. Their father interrupts, greeting Prince Aslan formally before introducing Iris properly. Vivian steps forward and introduces Aslan as the Archduke of Blackford to Iris, adding that he was the one who drove away the thief that day. Iris blinks, surprised that Vivian addresses her so directly by name, and she asks if she may call her Vivian. Vivian nods, smiling, allowing the familiarity. Immediately, Duke Eleonora scolds Vivian harshly. He reminds her that after bringing such disgrace to their family, and to His Highness through her actions with the will, she has yet to offer a single word of apology. He continues, his tone grave, that to set matters right, he personally requested that His Majesty dissolve the engagement. Vivian listens attentively, absorbing every word. Her father's declaration means that she will never be the Archduchess. Both Iris and Aslan react in shock. Vivian, however, quickly assesses the situation. Since her ultimate goal is to bring Aslan and Iris together, the annulment does not present an immediate problem. Yet she recognizes a potential complication. If their legal ties are severed before she has built sufficient trust with Iris, it could create difficulties. She wonders quietly if Aslan will still honor the understanding they shared now that he is no longer technically her fiancé. Observing Aslan, she notices the fury in his expression and whispers for him to calm down, urging him not to make a scene in the hall. Her father continues, insisting that there is no reason for her to cling to Aslan. The maids begin murmuring quietly among themselves, sensing the tension. Iris suggests moving the discussion inside, away from prying eyes, but Duke Eleonora silences her, claiming he knows precisely what he is doing. He then pleads with Aslan for forgiveness, acknowledging that he was likely caught off guard by the sudden annulment. He hesitates, then cautiously asks if he might propose a more suitable bride in Vivian's place, immediately introducing Iris as poised, mild-mannered, and far better suited to the role than a certain someone. Turning to one of his servants, Henry, he asks for confirmation. Henry nods in agreement. Aslan's gaze lands on Iris, and a single word escapes his lips. Pathetic. Vivian stiffens in surprise. Duke Eleonora questions the meaning of his remark. Aslan draws Vivian slightly closer, explaining that he called her father's desperate attempts to isolate Vivian pathetic. Nothing more. Duke Eleonora tries to deny it, but Iris steps in, agreeing with Aslan. She insists that it is wrong and that she will not become a disgrace who steals her own sister's fiancé. Her father glares at her, his expression sharp and threatening, questioning whether she would defy a royal decree and his direct command. Iris remains firm, asserting that she refuses to do so. In the sudden tension, Duke Eleonora raises his hand, but Vivian steps forward instinctively and his hand lands on her cheek instead, leaving her with a sharp sting. She swallows the pain, feeling the weight of the moment as the hall falls into tense silence. Aslan screams her name, his voice sharp and filled with urgency. Vivian, without hesitation, steps forward and tells her father firmly not to touch her sister. She continues, her tone calm but resolute, that they haven't processed the sudden news of the broken engagement. Everything had been overturned in an instant, and they are yet to receive a proper explanation from His Majesty. She kindly asks her father to wait until they have that audience, emphasizing that while the engagement may have originated as a political agreement between families, it was also a personal promise between herself and Prince Aslan. As she speaks, Aslan watches her, a soft smile tugging at the corner of his lips as if silently approving her composure and determination. He walks towards her as she admits that she isn't feeling well and suggests they stay for the night instead of attempting anything further. Her father, clearly irritated, mutters something about her impudence. Vivian walks away, thinking to herself that the Duke's slap is nothing she couldn't handle. Yet she marvels at how effective the dramatic act had been in winning Iris's favor. She hadn't expected it to work this smoothly. Iris approaches her, worry evident in her eyes, and asks if she's all right, noting that Vivian had dragged her into the chaos once again. Vivian reassures her, insisting she's fine. Iris offers to tend to her wound, but Vivian politely declines. They soon enter her room, and Vivian notes silently that it is much smaller than the one at Aslan's manor. Aslan, observing her reaction, remarks that he will stay in her room as well. She wonders why, when he could easily take a perfectly suitable room elsewhere. He questions if she started living in the annex after contracting tuberculosis, and she responds uncertainly that she thinks so. Her memory of events not detailed in the novel is hazy, leaving her unsure of past details. She doesn't remember much from before the possession, but there is a quiet relief in that. She retains the etiquette, the discipline, and the swordsmanship instilled in her body. Aslan tells her to get some rest, and she accepts, offering a soft thanks. He reaches for her face, his fingers brushing lightly against her cheek, and reminds her of what he told her back at the manor, that she is the one meant to be his wife. He reassures her that she doesn't need to throw herself into danger, that he will always protect her. She agrees silently in her mind, though her body seems to react even before her thoughts catch up. He notes that it is simply her nature, yet he insists she take better care of herself, at least for those who care for her. Vivian finds it strange that he phrases it this way, echoing the contract. Yet today it feels tender, familiar, almost as though she has heard these words before in another time, another life. Suddenly, he asks if she can stay alone for a moment. She questions where he is going. He responds that he needs to take care of something briefly and will return soon. She nods, sensing there is something he isn't saying, and thinks once again how impossible he is to figure out. As Aslan walks away, he stops abruptly at the sight of Duke Eleonora. The Duke bows quickly, apologizing for the earlier incident and trying to explain himself, but Aslan interrupts, stating that he is here for another matter. He wishes to hear more about the engagement with Iris Eleonora. The Duke nods and instructs maid Anna to escort Aslan to a room, but Aslan declines, insisting on choosing a location with some fresh air, somewhere more suitable for discussion. Meanwhile, in her room, Vivian notices something tucked beneath the pillow. Curious, she lifts it and discovers a book. She flips through the pages, puzzled by its presence, and begins reading. It is a diary belonging to her great-aunt on her maternal side, who had retired to rest and recover, only to perish in a carriage accident. Vivian learns that she and her older brother inherited their aunt's estate, leaving a pressing question: who will care for their remaining family? Vivian examines the dates and handwriting, realizing the diary likely began when she was 10. The final entry chills her. It recounts her great aunt coughing up blood, a bitter taste rising in her mouth. A life fought desperately under the Duke's cruelty, ending tragically with her death. The weight of it sinks into Vivian's chest, a somber reminder of how fragile life can be under oppressive hands. At that moment, a faint knock at the window draws her attention. Heart quickening, she approaches and opens the curtain. A bright beam of light spills into the room, and she freezes as a tall shadow looms just beyond the glass, mysterious and commanding, filling her with both caution and curiosity. Vivian blinks at the figure in the bright light, her heart skipping a beat, and then she realizes it's Alex Eleonora, her older brother. She steps back slightly, startled, and questions what he's doing here, noting that she thought he was supposed to be at the academy. Alex brushes a few leaves off his coat and hair, a faint smile on his face, and replies that he came to see her. He asks how she's been, and she can't help but question why he climbed through the window, pointing out that he scared her half to death. He explains that he had no choice. If he had tried to enter through the front gate, the attendants would have swarmed him instantly and dragged him straight to their father. Vivian nods slowly, realizing his reasoning and the careful thought behind his actions. Alex leans against the window frame, his expression turning more serious as he asks if there isn't something she should be telling him. She tilts her head, confused, and then notes quietly how impressive he is at climbing walls. He shakes his head, insisting that it's nothing, and presses her to be honest. His eyes narrow slightly as he asks why she didn't tell him about her tuberculosis. She remains silent, unable to meet his gaze, and he continues, noting that he heard she left a will and ran away. He questions if he really has to learn such things from someone else. She quietly admits that she had planned to write to him, but she had been so overwhelmed by the possession and everything else that she hadn't spared a single thought for Alex until now. After a brief pause, Alex explains that he had gone abroad to study, to become strong enough to protect her from their father. But now, if she disappears on him like this, he declares that he won't go back to the academy. Vivian's eyes widen. She points out that he's so close to graduating. He responds with unwavering determination, reminding her that she is terminally ill and asking where else he could possibly be but at her side. She tries to reason with him, telling him he is being ridiculous and should return to his studies. She questions how he could have left in the middle of the term without saying a word. He smirks and admits he has his ways. He had snuck out. She apologizes for worrying him, assuring him that she is perfectly fine and that things aren't as bad as he imagines, insisting he return to the academy. But then Alex notices her red cheek and frowns deeply. He demands to know what happened. She explains, her voice calm but firm, and he cannot believe that their father struck her in front of everyone. His eyes flash with anger, and he curses their father under his breath. Since she had allowed it to happen on purpose, he warns her to be careful. He confides that he has a feeling the broken engagement won't be the end of it. Vivian tells him not to worry, and notes that she doesn't believe Aslan would accept it quietly. Alex asks if she means the second prince, and she confirms, spilling that she knows Aslan doesn't care for her all that much. Vivian explains that the Empress, attempting to place Johannes on the throne, had always seen Aslan as a threat, which is why she was chosen as Aslan's fiancé. Being forced into an engagement by the Empress would have been insulting enough, and now that it is being called off, she reasons that there's no way Aslan would take it lightly. Alex nods, stating that it's safe to assume Aslan is on her side. She affirms it. Still, Alex insists that she inform him if anyone causes her trouble, even Aslan, promising he won't let it pass. She laughs softly, questioning what he would do. He explains that he would help her escape, then take her place in disguise and marry Aslan himself. Vivian cannot help but laugh aloud at the thought. She hasn't laughed this hard in ages, and she asks if he plans to sleep there tonight. He had intended to leave after seeing her, but now decides he needs a word with their father. She raises an eyebrow and asks if he is planning to start a fight. He counters, asking if she wants him to, but she warns him not to dare. A maid interrupts, reporting that the Duke left the manor with Prince Aslan. Vivian and Alex exchange puzzled glances. She wonders aloud if the matter Aslan needed to take care of is somehow related to their father. Meanwhile, Prince Aslan and Duke Eleonora walk briskly through the gardens. The Duke urges Aslan to look kindly upon Iris. Aslan nods, understanding the Duke's intent, but asks, quietly and sharply, "What about Vivian?" The Duke hesitates, questioning if the prince is uncertain how to deal with her. He explains that he will put Aslan's mind at ease. Vivian is to be married to Lord Nicholas, the Margrave of the Borderlands. Aslan raises an eyebrow, noting that Lord Nicholas must be well past 50. The Duke affirms, emphasizing that it suits His Majesty's desire to see a loyal servant to the Empire properly settled, even as a widower. He adds that Vivian will be able to devote her remaining time to a meaningful purpose, which should be considered a great honor. Aslan's lips press into a thin line. He knows far too well what awaits women married off to the Margrave and decides there's no need to listen any further. Aslan stops, his expression darkening. He turns to the Duke and insists that, since they are soon to be family, they must speak openly and honestly. The Duke agrees and explains that he sent all attendants away to ensure privacy. Aslan stretches a hand toward the Duke, his movements deliberate, and grips him suddenly by the neck. The Duke struggles, his words caught in his throat. Asking what? Aslan's voice is low and dangerous, chilling even in the light. He tells the Duke to consider himself lucky. Few have the chance to witness this side of him, the demon of Astaroth. He deals with him for a while, controlling the fear, the desperation, and the flailing movements. In the midst of it, a memory surfaces, triggered by the steady, icy calm in his own mind. Diego approaches and presents a thick folder, the investigation report into House Eleonora. Aslan takes it, skimming through the pages, absorbing the meticulous records of each misdeed, each crime. His eyes pause on one detail, the poisoning of Duchess Eleonora. The former Duchess had been delicate, her frail health making her unfit to bear the heavy responsibilities of leadership, yet her mind was sharp, and her political instincts were unparalleled. Despite her limitations, she wielded real power, and the former Duke sought a figurehead to hold the title, a convenient puppet to mask the true governance. He brought in a distant relative, a man with no charisma or influence, to marry into the family and take the title. That man is the current Duke Eleonora. But the poisoning of the Duchess was only the beginning. As Aslan reads further, he sees the pattern unfold clearly. The current Duke's calculated mental and physical abuse, the public humiliation designed to crush Vivian, the theft of her inheritance, the neglect, the manipulation, and finally the demand to dissolve the engagement. With each page, Aslan's understanding deepens. He finally comprehends everything about Vivian. Her desperate attempts to preserve the engagement, the choices she made to secure her position, and the path that led her to embrace the role of a villainess. Every calculated move, every bold decision, now makes chilling sense. At that moment, Aslan's gaze hardens, and he turns back to the trembling Duke. He tells him bluntly that he will give him a chance to make amends. Go to the Emperor immediately and plead that the annulment be reconsidered. Otherwise, the nightmare he just witnessed will become his reality. The Duke struggles to rise, eyes wide with terror, and mutters that he is still alive. Aslan calmly reminds him that what he just endured was an illusion, created by a magic stone, a mere shadow of what could have been. The Duke reels, confusion and fear clouding his mind. He wonders to himself, rationalizing that nothing else makes sense. Aslan must be Astaroth, the demon of legend. He questions the prince's motives, why he would torment a man over a girl like Vivian. Aslan leans closer, voice low and cutting. He asks if the Duke, with his pitiful mind, even comprehends how deeply she has taken hold of him, how every breath, every thought, every fiber of his being is entwined with hers. Then he states plainly, with a certainty that chills the air, he belongs to Vivian. Morning comes and sunlight filters through the window. Vivian stirs slowly, reluctant to leave the warmth and softness of her bed. Her hands brush the sheets, wondering if her bed has always been this comfortable. When she finally opens her eyes, Aslan is there, sitting close by, silent and watchful. She jolts upright, calling his name in alarm, and questions when he returned and where he went the previous night. He draws her gently closer, noting that she should stay near him. The bed is too small for distance. She presses him for an answer again, but he simply says that he had business to take care of. She hesitates, asking if it had anything to do with her father, only to realize that he has already fallen asleep. A knock at the door interrupts the quiet, and a voice announces that her morning medicine has been brought. Vivian hesitates, then gestures for them to come in, realizing that she is still lying against Aslan. The door opens, and she is stunned to see Alex standing there trying to surprise her. He freezes at the sight, equally shocked. He quickly apologizes to Aslan for intruding, explaining that he didn't expect the prince to be in her room. Aslan waves him off, saying it's fine. Alex had no reason to expect his presence, and introduces himself politely. Alex nods, masking his inner thoughts. He wonders if Aslan is simply playing the concerned fiancé after ignoring Vivian for so long. Aslan, in turn, quietly notes that Alex has decided to act like her brother, finally stepping into that role after being absent. Vivian clears her throat to draw their attention, and Aslan informs Alex that they plan to remain here a few more days. Vivian has much to catch up on, he explains, and she has yet to meet Iris properly. She affirms this, preparing to speak, but Aslan interrupts, noting that Duke Eleonora left for the Imperial Palace last night to request the reinstatement of the engagement. Convincing the Emperor should be a little easier now. Vivian hesitates, a flicker of doubt crossing her mind, wondering if Aslan might have done something severe in the process. Ever since Aslan went searching for Vivian after her disappearance, he has been able to remain conscious even under the curse. Now, he controls when it takes hold. He reflects silently, concluding that it is because of Vivian that he can maintain his clarity and keep the shadows at bay. Vivian looks at Aslan, and he gives her a small, reassuring smile. Alex, standing nearby, raises an eyebrow and notes that it's surprising their father would change his mind so suddenly. But he decides to play the host graciously, and with a polite bow, he informs them that breakfast is ready and hopes they will join him. One of the reasons Aslan asked to extend their stay at Eleonora Manor is that Vivian's condition had worsened slightly overnight. His Majesty had been gracious enough to decree that she could come to the palace whenever she recovered, which should have been a relief. Yet Vivian cannot stop the knot of worry tightening in her chest. Even now, she wonders what could come next. In the original story, the female lead had gone to the palace and faced humiliations at the hands of the Empress. But the details are hazy. Considering that so many of those same misfortunes seem to be creeping toward her now, she wishes she could remember more of the story so she might have a plan to avoid disaster. Perhaps she should simply enjoy these rare good moments while they last. Meanwhile, Aslan instructs Dylan, who is standing nearby, to bring the things he mentioned earlier. Dylan bows and hurries off to comply. After the meal, Vivian feels a tickle in her throat that quickly turns into a harsh cough. Aslan immediately suggests she return to bed. She hesitates, murmuring that it feels stifling to stay all day indoors. The conversation shifts, and Aslan comments on Alex's training at the academy, noting that he has been schooled in swordsmanship. Alex affirms this proudly. Aslan then proposes a duel with him, curious to see how well his skills measure up. Alex accepts without hesitation, and Aslan tells Vivian to come watch because the duel is for her. Vivian finds a shaded spot beside Iris, who joins her, and they watch the two men square off. She finds it oddly entertaining, the clash of swords and the sparks of energy chasing away the stray, dark thoughts from her mind. Seeing the two of them alive and brimming with vigor gives her a strange, uplifting sense of strength. Meanwhile, Aslan notes with a small laugh that Alex's skill is impressive. Alex brags that he's top of his class at the academy, which explains why it took him so long to return. Iris watches quietly, clearly impressed, and comments that seeing it all in person is incredible. Vivian wonders again if Iris has any interest in Aslan at all. The older sister admits, a little ruefully, that she is jealous of Alex's coordination and agility because she has always spent her time in books, confined to her room. Vivian teases her gently, asking about magic, noting that learning to wield it might allow her to fight and still enjoy her reading. Her thoughts wander briefly to the Imperial Library, recalling the story where the female lead met the Empress and was humiliated. A poorly secured bookshelf had collapsed, nearly crushing the Empress, who pinned the blame on the girl simply for being nearby. Vivian shudders, wondering if avoiding the library could truly prevent similar disasters. She then realizes, grimly, that fate does not chase places or people. It chases her. The regret creeps in, and she begins to cough violently. Aslan drops his sword instantly, rushing to her side. Alex and the others sprint after him, worry etched on their faces. Once in her room, Alex anxiously asks how she is doing, but Aslan interrupts calmly, explaining that the doctor recommended rest, though he admits the man tends to ramble and cannot be fully trusted. He confides that he doubts the doctor is properly assessing her condition and is unconvinced she will get the care she truly needs. Alex feels the weight of guilt pressing down on him. He had gone abroad to study for her protection, yet it seems his absence only worsened her situation. She had likely hidden her illness to avoid worrying him, and now he finds himself being looked after by his own sister. Ashamed, he admits silently that he has failed her. Aslan observes, a quiet thought forming in his mind. She is always so foolishly selfless. Perhaps it is precisely that selflessness that made him fall for her. But he cannot let her suffer anymore. He pleads silently, urging her to wake because there is something he wants to give her. Vivian's eyes flutter open, pain shooting through her chest. She finds herself thinking it is almost laughable. Once, she had been ready to give up entirely, to surrender to death. Yet now she struggles fiercely to survive. She notices a pattern. Her previous attempts to flee had failed, but facing her challenges head-on had allowed her to endure. If she can survive this way, perhaps she can even turn the crisis into an opportunity. She raises her hand slightly and a maid appears quickly, asking if she needs anything. Vivian shakes her head, requesting only that they tell Aslan to trust her, no matter what happens. Hearing her words, Aslan tilts his head slightly. He wonders for a moment if Vivian said that just to put his mind at ease. Then, almost with a sigh, he affirms to himself that he had forgotten, even for a moment, that there's no one as upright and steadfast as her. The next morning, Iris leans forward, curiosity bright in her eyes, and asks if Vivian always behaves this way. Vivian nods, her lips curling into a small smile, and notes that she's gotten over whatever had been making her feel unwell the previous day. She feels lighter, more energetic, more herself. Vivian glances at Iris and asks if she was worried about her. Iris nods solemnly, admitting that Alex had cried a lot, though Alex quickly cuts her off before she can reveal too much. Alex steps forward, his tone gentle but firm, and says that Vivian had insisted she wasn't feeling that sick. She apologizes softly, admitting that she didn't mean to worry him again. He pulls her into a tight hug, holding her close and murmurs, questioning if she truly understands just how worried he had been. Aslan steps forward then, his expression calm but authoritative, and asks Alex to excuse them for a moment. He wants to speak with his fiancée in private. Once alone, Vivian looks up at him, curiosity mingling with a slight smile, and asks what he wishes to discuss. Aslan chuckles softly, requesting that she close her eyes first. Obediently, she does so, feeling his presence draw closer. After a few moments, he tells her to open her eyes. She does, and her gaze falls upon a delicate necklace resting against her neck. Aslan asks gently if she likes it. Vivian glances at it, noting that it's fancy, perhaps more elegant than necessary for no special occasion. She wonders if he is simply putting on a show of courtesy. Still, she can't help but notice how different he is from Aslan in the original story. He even relents when she requests things with that pitiful expression he pretends to disdain, though begrudgingly. She concludes that perhaps he isn't such a bad person after all. Either way, she decides to keep playing along in this way, at least until she secures the cure. She thanks him sincerely for the necklace and everything else he's done. Aslan studies her face, the soft smile tugging at her lips, and turns away, muttering under his breath that she is always testing his self-control, and he can hardly bear it. Vivian wonders briefly if she said something wrong, but then corrects herself. She isn't merely talking about the necklace. She is grateful for his presence, for the courage he gave her to stand up to her father, and for the chance to reunite with her beloved family. She admits quietly that although she told him she was fine back at his manor, she had been feeling a little lonely after all. She laughs softly, and he caresses her, reassuring her with a gentle touch. Vivian considers that her actions smooth over the moment, but they are not lies. She is certain the villainess of Eleonora, the one she now inhabits, would have wanted this kind of happiness too. After all, the original version of her life ended tragically. Perhaps by living as her now, she can bring closure to that story. The thought brings her quiet comfort. Alex steps closer, concern in his eyes, and suggests she run away with him. His academy is renowned for medicine, he says, and if he requests it, they might be able to help with her illness too. Vivian questions him about Eleonora. He shrugs lightly, insisting he doesn't care about the family as long as she gets to live. She shakes her head, smiling softly, and assures him that she will stay at the manor. She reminds him that Prince Aslan has promised to cure her tuberculosis, so there's no need to worry. Alex is surprised but accepts her decision. Vivian adds that Eleonora was left to them by their mother, so both of them must protect her until the end. She teases him, urging him to hurry with his graduation so he can return to fulfill his responsibilities properly. He grins and promises he will. The pleasant days at Eleonora Manor soon come to an end. Aslan and Vivian prepare to set out for the Imperial Palace, while Iris chooses to stay behind to continue her noble etiquette lessons. Alex remains as well, citing obligations regarding their father. On their journey, Vivian muses aloud about the kind of fit her father is likely to throw when he learns of all that has happened. Aslan, quiet but confident, reassures her that there's no reason to worry. It won't happen. Vivian wonders how he knows, and then realizes he must mean that Alex will handle it. Meanwhile, at the Imperial Palace, the Emperor recalls having previously extended mercy, yet notes with contempt that Aslan dared to use him in Astaroth. In his mind, Aslan is an ungrateful beast, and he swears that he will make him pay when the opportunity arises. Meanwhile, in the carriage, Aslan leans slightly closer, lowering his voice as he tells Vivian what his father said. She is to marry Margrave. Vivian blinks in surprise, her mind racing at the implications, but Aslan reassures her quickly. There's no need to worry, he says, because Lord Nicholas will soon be removed from his position, rendering the marriage arrangement void. Vivian frowns slightly, finding the situation baffling. Lord Nicholas is a man of national merit, a figure of considerable influence and respect. Yet, she decides to take Aslan at his word. After all, the Blackford intelligence network is second to none, and he would not mislead her. She quietly hopes that he will place the same trust in her, even if it means she must save the life of the Empress, someone he despises. The carriage slows and comes to a stop. They alight gracefully, and for now, everything seems to be going as Aslan said. The talks of marrying Margrave have ceased entirely. He has lost his position due to charges of treason and is now expected to face execution. Concern remains. There is still the matter of the broken engagement. Inside the Imperial Palace, His Majesty gestures for Vivian to excuse them so he can speak with Aslan alone. She notices the Emperor's stern expression and wonders what could require a private discussion. Her mind flickers to the past. Aslan suffered harsh abuse from the Emperor during his childhood in the original story. She wonders if leaving them alone is truly safe. Her worries multiply, but she knows she has even bigger concerns. She is about to be accused of attempting to eliminate the Empress. But before that accusation can even be leveled, she must act to save herself and herself. Meanwhile, Aslan receives a sharp slap from His Majesty. He flinches, then questions why the Emperor has removed the national hero from power. Aslan explains calmly that His Majesty had not been pleased with Margrave expanding his own faction. Even if he had taken action previously and the Emperor had looked the other way, Lord Nicholas would have remained in power. The Emperor's expression hardens. He remarks that perhaps he has been too lenient for too long. Without further warning, he grabs a rope and commands Aslan to kneel. Obediently, Aslan kneels, and the Emperor begins to whip him, calling him ruthless and inhuman. Aslan endures it silently, responding only that he is deeply honored. After a time, the Emperor shifts, questioning how Aslan intends to explain Duke Eleonora. Aslan asks calmly if the Duke has said something. His Majesty explains that the Duke came to him in terror, begging that the engagement to his daughter be reinstated, and confessed that he was being threatened by the demon Astaroth. The Emperor's eyes narrow. He questions whether Aslan has exploited the curse's power. Aslan keeps silent. The Emperor then demands to know why Aslan is so obsessed with the engagement. Inwardly, Aslan notes that it is because he loves Vivian, though he doubts the Emperor would understand. He thinks to himself that the Emperor and Duke Eleonora are of the same narrow-minded breed. If he is to persuade them, he must frame it in terms they can comprehend. So, he spills that he saw potential in Vivian. The Emperor's gaze sharpens. He questions what potential, and he remarks that the girl is dying of tuberculosis. Aslan responds, his voice steady. She has the power to suppress Astaroth's curse, and she may be the one who can finally end it. He continues, emphasizing that in order to claim that power for the Imperial family, it was necessary to weaken House Eleonora's faction. The Emperor then questions if Aslan learned the truth only moments before Vivian's impending death. Aslan screams with anger and desperation, insisting that Vivian will not become unalive, for he will do everything in his power to save her. He pleads passionately that His Majesty reinstate the engagement because Astaroth needs her. Meanwhile, Vivian's thoughts are racing. She has to reach the library before the Empress, and she must act as if she is running into her by chance. She knows that stopping the Empress from entering is impossible. Any interference would make her appear suspicious. She recalls from the novel that the collapsed shelf is in the magic books section, her only option to lure the Empress away. Her head aches as she wonders why the novel never provided a solution. Perhaps she should have simply pretended to be sicker and stayed at Aslan's manor. Suddenly, a voice cuts through her thoughts. She hears her name. She spins around, and there she sees the Empress. Vivian bows to greet the Empress. The Empress immediately notices that Vivian appears more frail than the last time she saw her, her face clouded with worry. She concludes that the young lady is clearly in poor health and wonders why her son, Johannes, has taken an interest in someone like her. Her attention shifts toward the library, curious if Vivian is heading there, and she allows her to look around freely. Vivian moves cautiously, aware of the magic books section, and mentally urges the Empress to be careful if she intends to inspect it. She fabricates an excuse, explaining that accidents often occur in the area due to lingering mana. The Empress notes with a smile that no accident has occurred in the Imperial Library since its opening, and laughter follows as someone adds that the only way such an accident could happen is if a trap had been deliberately set. Vivian maintains that her concern is solely for Her Majesty's safety. The Empress acknowledges it politely, declaring it is not Vivian's concern, and departs. From a distance, Vivian watches, recalling that in the novel, the shelf collapses suddenly, though this one does not appear unstable enough to do so naturally. She questions what the true cause might be. The maid approaches, searching for a specific book mentioned by the Empress, explaining that she is unfamiliar with advanced magical languages. Vivian, also not fully versed in them, decides to assist the maid, who expresses her gratitude. As Vivian searches the shelves, a spark jumps onto her hand, accompanied by a fine dusting of powder. She feels the sting but remains unharmed. The maid confirms that the book Vivian hands over is the one she has been seeking and departs promptly. Vivian rubs her hand, recalling a similar sting at the store where magic stones are sold. She remembers Aslan explaining that even someone without mana could feel a sting from a magic stone, and wonders who could have brought one into the Imperial Library. Meanwhile, the Empress asks where the maid found the book. The maid explains that Vivian located it on a specific shelf and leads the Empress toward it. Sparks flicker near the bookshelves. prompting Vivian to urge caution, warning the Empress not to come closer. The sparks flare suddenly, revealing a magic stone, and the shelf tilts dangerously as it begins to fall. Vivian moves quickly, hurrying to prevent it from toppling onto the Empress. The maid rushes forward in concern, checking that the Empress is unharmed. The Empress assesses the situation, noting that the shelf has collapsed unexpectedly. Instructions are immediately given to summon the Imperial doctor. At this moment, a faint light glimmers near the maid's skirt. The librarian steps forward to inspect it, and the maid insists there is nothing. Upon examining it, the librarian finds something unusual and informs the Empress that it does not appear to be an accident. 2 guards hold the maid as she keeps insisting it isn't her. With everyone's attention on the maid, Vivian realizes she no longer needs to worry about taking the blame. Yet she wonders why the maid didn't flee immediately if she were truly guilty. It doesn't add up. It reminds her of how the female lead in the original novel was falsely accused in such an absurd way. The Empress instructs that the maid be taken to the torture chamber, but Vivian interrupts, asking to speak. She explains that handling such a powerful explosive stone with precision requires skilled magic, and the maid has no knowledge of magical languages. The Empress prompts her to elaborate, and Vivian recounts how the maid struggled to find the book because she isn't familiar with advanced magical scripts. She concludes that anyone who doesn't know the difference between basic and advanced language could never handle a magic stone. The librarian questions how Vivian can be certain the maid wasn't acting and why the mana stone came from her pocket. Vivian admits she doesn't know, but emphasizes that the maid's hesitation to flee raises doubts. The librarian remains silent, and Vivian starts to suspect him. He is the only person skilled enough to manage the magic books, yet directly accusing him could backfire, so she decides to tread carefully. Vivian suggests examining the debris of the magic stone that toppled the bookshelf. If they can trace the remaining mana, they might identify the culprit. The librarian asks how she plans to do that. Vivian explains that anyone who isn't the stone's owner will trigger a reaction if they touch it, while the true culprit will not. The librarian finds her logic impressive, but points out that the stone's mana dissipates in minutes, leaving little time to test it. Vivian reasons that the culprit, being proficient in magic, anticipated that and didn't retrieve the fragments from her palm. She asks if her deduction is correct. The librarian questions whether she suspects him. She clarifies she wouldn't call it suspicion, then places his hands on the fragments. No spark occurs. Vivian declares she's certain. The librarian remarks that she is quite knowledgeable about magic. She laughs and admits she only learned a few things by observing Archduke Aslan. He laughs in return, admitting he underestimated her. Vivian turns to check on the Empress and notices she looks upset. She wonders if she went too far, realizing she just accused an Imperial administrator of a heinous crime. She scolds herself for being reckless. Meanwhile, the Empress questions why Vivian is alone, noting she came with Aslan. She explains that His Majesty worries about Vivian's health, allowing her to leave early. The Empress reflects that, facing a terminal illness, Vivian's time must be precious, yet she risked herself to help another. She instructs Vivian to lift her head and states she will continue observing her, likely to see if she behaves properly. Vivian notes that she now has 2 people watching her, Aslan and the Empress, but laughs at her own imagination. Aslan walks with 2 men behind him. Suddenly, he winces in pain. Johannes, standing nearby, notices the smell of blood and realizes it is Aslan. He continues, expressing how much it hurts, and remarks that they meet again after such a long time. Aslan greets him with a sharp, almost frightening glare. Johannes questions what he wants. He responds that he wants nothing, that he is only concerned. Then his gaze narrows, and he comments on what sort of elder brother would turn a blind eye when his younger sibling reeks of blood so strongly. He touches Aslan's chest, pointing out that Aslan brought this mess upon himself with reckless use of the curse, yet now he drops the consequences onto others. He questions how much further Aslan wishes to disgrace the Imperial family. Aslan retorts that Johannes is hardly in a position to speak, considering that leaving dirty work to others has always been his specialty. Johannes refuses to let him change the subject, insisting that he wants to know what Aslan is truly after. Vivian, walking close by, notices the tense exchange and senses a bad feeling. She hurries toward them, seeing that Aslan looks worse than before. She concludes that something serious must have happened. Johannes notes that it has been a while and asks if she is feeling better. She affirms, and he remarks that he hasn't felt at ease since their last parting. He then requests that she visit his palace once her business is done, promising proper hospitality this time. Aslan declines, thanking him, but Johannes emphasizes that the invitation is for Vivian. Aslan comments that she is too thoughtful to refuse, even when she knows she cannot manage it. Vivian, anxious to separate the 2 men, apologizes, stating that she still has matters to attend to, but will gladly accept a future invitation. Johannes promises to send a formal invitation later, and she thanks him. He observes that she has been getting along with Aslan lately, which makes her smile. Then he asks if she is aware of Aslan's true nature. Both she and Aslan express surprise. Vivian wonders why he is asking and fears he somehow knows about the curse. Her mind goes blank, leaving her unable to respond. Johannes shifts the conversation to what they might discuss over tea, teasing that her fiancé's childhood would make an amusing topic. She curses him internally, knowing that for him this is playful, but for her it is a matter of life or death. One wrong move could put Aslan in danger, or worse, endanger her. Soon Aslan calls her, breaking her tension. She laughs quietly, noting the Crown Prince's mischievousness. She checks if Aslan agrees to it, and he leans onto her shoulder immediately. Blood stains him, and rain begins to fall around them. Later, they reach a room. Vivian is taken aback at how badly Aslan has been hurt. He claims he is used to it, but she cannot shake her earlier premonition of danger. A surge of guilt fills her chest. For now, she wants to do whatever she can. She instructs him to remove his clothes so she can clean his wounds and provide fresh clothes. Observing her concern, he reassures her that she need not call anyone else, though he suggests she undress him because he cannot do it alone. Movement causes pain. Vivian begins to loosen his buttons carefully. She notices that the bruises are far worse than she expected. Her first thought is to summon the Imperial doctor, but Aslan insists she is enough. She decides to disinfect the wounds herself, focusing on the task. As she works, he remarks on his constant display of weakness in front of her and asks if she is not tired of him. She counters gently, noting that everyone has moments of vulnerability and that it is only right to accept help in times of need. The reflection of his lonely, difficult childhood stirs empathy in her, reminding her of her own struggles to bear burdens alone. That is why he feels all the more pitiful to her. He questions whether she will remain by his side, even knowing he is flawed. She affirms, thinking quietly that she will go along with it for now. What he needs most at this moment is reassurance. Once they return to Blackford, he will recover his usual composure, and this chapter of vulnerability will pass. Duke Eleonora, who vanished one night without a word, is found dead in the mountains. The cause is ruled an accidental fall. His funeral is held privately, attended only by immediate family. It is a funeral, yet no one cries. Vivian doesn't cry either. Still, something about her father's death feels off, an unease she cannot shake. Her brother, who had planned to return to the academy, suddenly inherits the title of Duke, leaving him thoroughly flustered. Fortunately, Aslan, with his wealth of experience and resources, offers generous support, allowing the succession to proceed smoothly. Iris is officially added to the family, and things seem to be going well for everyone, except Vivian, whose life feels like it keeps spiraling uncontrollably. The morning before, as the maids dress Vivian, she notices a faint mark on her chest. She wonders what it could be and questions one of the maids about it, but the maid cannot see it. She recalls a similar mark from the novel, though the color and shape differ. In the book, it is so dark that the female lead must wear dresses covering her entire chest. Vivian's mark, however, is more like the one she saw on Aslan in the cave. She wonders if he knows about it and considers asking him directly. Suddenly, she hears voices and peeks to listen. She feels a pang of surprise as Dylan questions whether Aslan is really set on the matter, calling it reckless, since, in the worst-case scenario, Madame could become unalive. Dylan pauses, hearing a noise, and decides to check the door, but sees no one. He returns to report to Aslan that it was nothing. Vivian, still hiding, wonders what they were discussing. A cold fear creeps in. Could Aslan finally be set on getting rid of her? She reminds herself that she never acted with him expecting something in return, yet questions how he could forget everything she has done for him. She realizes that she must deal with the mark without him knowing. Her thoughts turn to Jesus, the Archmage from the original novel. As Guildmaster of the Mage Guild, he helped the female lead awaken her powers and might know something about the pentagram. He is a mysterious, elusive figure, but thanks to the novel, she already knows where he is. All she needs is a chance to slip away alone. The next day, walking with Aslan, Vivian feels the impossibility of going out alone. Even a regular outing is tense. He wears his uniform, carries his sword, and his expression is as intimidating as ever. He tells her he has reserved the entire place they are going to, ensuring no one will disturb them. Vivian notes one small silver lining. They are near Jesus' guild. An opportunity like this may never come again. She resolves to lose him fast. She mentions a store she wants to stop by and carefully questions whether he would mind if she went alone. Aslan immediately responds that it isn't safe, suggesting they go together. She hesitates, embarrassed at the idea of going with a man to an undergarment shop. He freezes, then, being considerate, allows her to go. Relief floods her, and she promises to meet him at the restaurant in 20 minutes. Before he can insist on sending her maids along, she's already gone. She arrives at the store quickly, noticing the sign just as described in the story. She composes herself and opens the door. Nothing stands out at first glance, but the guild is deceptive. Illusion is second nature here, and anyone judging appearances would surely be fooled. A man approaches, noting that it is no place for an honorable lady like her, and questions if she is lost. Their eyes meet, and they both smile. Vivian recognizes him immediately. It is Jesus. Vivian recognizes that the man in front of her is wearing a disguise, but she knows she can reveal him by chanting the lullaby of the Empire. She comments on the legend that the devil appears on the night of the red moon, and he confirms it, warning her not to open her eyes. Suddenly, a bright light surrounds her, and she finds herself in a completely different location, marveling at the power of an archmage. She explains that she wants him to examine the magic circle mark on her body. At first, he does not sense anything, but soon he detects the mark and questions the nature of the dangerous magic. She asks if it is serious, and he confirms that it is extremely powerful dark magic capable of ending her life by bursting her heart. He notices her calm exterior, unaware that she is panicking inside. She trusts that an archmage of his caliber must know the solution. He notes her sharpness and reveals that her magic circle is incomplete. Unlike fully formed dark magic circles, this one does not appear deep red. He explains that dismantling the formula could resolve the problem. Vivian agrees, but he warns that the magic circle is suppressing her tuberculosis and that dark magic is possessive, unwilling to let its subject pass away except by its own will. In essence, she faces a choice between succumbing to disease or to magic. She requests that he destroy the formula and promises to pay any reward he desires. He admits that money is not his only motivator and requests the blood of a pure Eleonora, asking for her consent even if it requires wounding herself. After a brief hesitation, she takes the knife and cuts herself, ensuring him it is sufficient. He is surprised by her fearlessness and confirms the deal. After casting a healing spell on her wound, he advises her not to hide it from the Archduke, noting that a skilled sword mage would detect the residual mana, and that deciphering the formula will take time, so she must be patient. Hurrying back, Vivian worries about the chaos and suspects that Aslan must be waiting for her. At the restaurant, Dylan questions whether Aslan is worried, and Aslan, in turn, challenges him on whether he appears worried. Dylan reassures him, recalling Aslan's menacing smile earlier, and notes that everything will be fine. He prepares a rose and advises Aslan to approach Vivian with a seductive shoulder dance, presenting the rose afterward to leave her yearning, confident it will succeed. Aslan asks if Vivian truly likes this kind of gesture, and Dylan confirms that he had asked her discreetly, and she had found it thoughtful. Aslan realizes he can no longer postpone the engagement, recognizing that her illness is not improving even under the care of renowned doctors. He decides that the only way to keep her alive by his side is through the imprint ritual, which will link their lifespans so she cannot be undone before him. Recalling Dylan's warning that she could cease to exist if he meets his end, Aslan accepts that it is a reckless but necessary choice and plans to hold the engagement ceremony as soon as possible. Vivian arrives, apologizing for her delay, and he questions why she ran, noting that he should have fetched her himself. She laughs slightly, reassuring him, but he insists she is not okay and instructs her to sit and rest. He notices the subtle mana emanating from the wound on her hand. To cover it, she fabricates a story, claiming she was slightly injured while helping a woman who healed her with magic. He probes gently to confirm the truth, and she explains that the woman had asked her to hide from some men. In the next scene, Vivian is speaking with Aslan, insisting she is telling the truth, and he calmly accepts it before saying he will have the meal brought out. She feels relieved, thinking it worked, yet she questions why Dylan is being dragged into the matter, and he explains there has been an issue. The outing ends more peacefully than expected, and just as things seem calm, a new season begins. In another scene, our girl reads a letter from Johanna about the summer hunt hosted by the Crown Prince in the Sacred Forest, inviting both her and Vivian. As our girl reads the same letter in a carriage, she tightens her grip, realizing the Sacred Forest is a holy place filled with anti-demonic power, making it dangerous for Aslan because of Astaroth's curse. Moreover, she recalls the attempted poisoning of the Empress before the festival, knowing he has no alibi and will be blamed, which makes her unable to stay behind. At the same time, she worries about her tuberculosis cure. Suddenly, he calls her name, notices she looks unwell, and suggests she should have stayed home, but she refuses, thinking she must stay close. As they arrive, she senses the forest easing her breathing and decides to use this chance to push through, planning first to keep him away from the Empress. As the moment continues, Vivian tells Aslan she will go to the quarters first, but he stops her and asks for a good luck kiss. She is shocked at first, then notices other ladies doing the same and realizes leaving without it would embarrass him, so she gives him a quick peck. Honestly, I would have done the same in that moment. He then holds her hand, promises to repay her support by catching the best game, and kisses her hand, while she thinks about how he knows this is a trap set by the Crown Prince, yet still walks into it. Even so, she accepts it and says she will look forward to it. And at that point, I can't help but think, this is exactly the kind of risky move that always leads to trouble, We are taken inside the building as Vivian looks around and realizes these are the quarters, once a manor, which explains why the place is so huge. And she notes that everyone not joining the hunt gathers here while wondering if the Empress has arrived. Suddenly, nearby ladies whisper about Countess Amelia, noting her presence at the hunting event. And at that moment, Vivian glances and quickly realizes something shocking, recognizing her as the true culprit who poisons the Empress and frames Aslan. Moreover, she notices how bold she is, not even hiding her actions, and concludes that things are unfolding just like the original story, meaning the poison will be placed in the champagne. Therefore, she plans to bump into the maid and secretly switch the glasses before quietly leaving. And honestly, this is one of those moments where one small mistake could ruin everything. Just then, an announcement echoes that the Empress and the Crown Prince have arrived, and she turns, knowing the moment has come. As the scene continues, the Empress greets Vivian first, which surprises her, and Johanna follows by asking about her participation, to which she answers she will stay behind today. And he requests that she remain by the Empress's side since his mother made a way to attend, and she accepts with sincerity. However, she feels the Empress looking at her strangely and begins to worry if something is wrong, especially when the Empress says she looks unwell and calls for the Imperial doctor named Pablo to examine her. At that instant, fear rises as she recalls being watched and wonders if this is meant to check how long she has left to live, remembering how the female lead was humiliated in this same place and now she fears the same fate. At the same time, everything worsens as she notices Amelia's maid approaching the Empress, making it almost impossible to switch the glasses. And now she is trapped between the doctor, focusing on her, and the poison plan moving forward, leaving her thinking fast about what to do next. We watch as our girl thinks fast, telling herself there must be a way out. And just as Pablo calls her name again, she suddenly acts, grabbing the tweezers from him and questioning what kind of sharp tool it is. He calmly explains it is for treatment, but she refuses, claiming it might harm her, and at the same time, she realizes she is drawing everyone's attention on purpose. As a result, she decides to push her act further, knowing she cannot stop the poisoning directly, so she will make someone else do it. She quickly calls out to Amelia's maid and hands her the tweezers, even as the maid tries to refuse because she must deliver champagne to the Empress. However, she insists and brings out an artifact her brother gave her, claiming it can detect anything harmful nearby. Soon, people begin whispering, calling her the villainess of Eleonora, and noting that she is causing trouble again. Yet, she remains focused, making sure everyone sees she never touched the champagne, and honestly, this is actually a smart move, turning suspicion away from herself. Then, the moment builds as she activates the item, and suddenly, something happens that shocks the crowd, making everyone murmur in confusion while Pablo reacts, saying it is impossible because the artifact does not lie. He starts to question if the tweezers are the issue, but then corrects himself, realizing the reaction must be from something else nearby. At that point, she pushes him to think, asking what it could be. And as he looks around, he notices the maid trembling. Immediately, he points it out, saying she is suspicious, especially of the champagne she is holding. And we watch as Vivian steps forward and questions the champagne, and as a result, the tension rises when she agrees it must be checked. Then she uses the artifact in her hand, and we see her confirm that it reacts more to the drink than to the tweezers, and immediately, the crowd begins to whisper as the truth starts to unfold. Moreover, she points out the danger, and just like that, people around begin to panic, realizing the drink was meant for the Empress. Johanna quickly takes control and orders the maid to be tied up, while she cries out that she has been framed. Yet the situation is already turning against her. Consequently, our girl realizes her plan has worked, and she prepares to leave quietly since she has stayed longer than planned, thinking about how Aslan's demonic energy is supposed to go out of control at sunset, and how she must stop him before he reaches the first Emperor's burial ground. However, just as she tries to slip away, Johanna stops her and praises her actions, pointing out how she handled everything while pretending it was a coincidence, and although she tries to stay calm, she understands he sees through her. Then she apologizes, but he reassures her and even says she is too good for Aslan, which makes the moment even more tense as she leaves, while he watches and thinks deeply about her intentions. At the same time, we are taken to the hunting ground where Aslan is chasing prey with others. Yet suddenly, he feels a sharp pain in his chest and realizes something is wrong. As if that wasn't enough, he understands that ever since he touched the relic, he has lost control of his demonic energy, and despite preparing for the forest's effects, he did not expect the first Emperor's sword to be used against him. And therefore, he struggles to keep going, falls from his horse, and admits he cannot ride any further, deciding he must hide. Then he reaches a fork in the path, where one road leads deeper into the forest and the other leads to the sacred burial ground, a place only for Imperial blood. Nevertheless, he knows entering it could turn him into a beast if he cannot endure it, yet he has no other choice if he wants to escape. This is getting really bad. Everything is closing in at once. In the end, as he accepts the risk, he thinks of Vivian and admits he wanted to return soon, but now it seems he will be delayed. We are taken into a tense moment as Vivian rides her horse as fast as she can, and at the same time, she thinks about how the sun is about to set while Aslan is still nowhere to be found. Consequently, she recalls that if things follow the novel, he will lose control of his demonic energy because of Johanna's trap and turn into the Black Lion right in front of his loyal subordinates, forcing him to get rid of them himself. And because of that, she pushes herself harder, determined to stop that tragedy. However, she suddenly slows down as she notices something strange on the ground, and as a result, she sees that the footprints slowly change into animal tracks. Even though they are faint, she clearly recognizes both human and animal prints, and immediately her eyes widen as she realizes that the path leads straight to the Emperor's burial ground. And without hesitation, she calls out Aslan's name while urging her horse forward even faster. Then we see her arrive at the first Emperor's burial site. And after getting down from the horse, she looks around carefully while thinking that if he is here, then he must have already turned into a beast and lost all reason, so she needs to be careful. But just when it feels quiet, she suddenly hears a sound, and as she turns toward the bushes and moves closer, she notices the glowing eyes of the Black Lion. Instantly, she is shocked as it roars and jumps toward her, making her cry out as she thinks she is about to be eaten alive. At this point, I would have just accepted my fate honestly. Yet, as if that wasn't enough to shock us, she opens her eyes and realizes the beast is only staring at her without attacking, and then it lies down on the ground, leaving her confused as she wonders what it is doing. She even questions if it is some kind of strange ritual, though to her, it even looks a bit cute. And in that moment, she realizes her special skill of taming wild beasts must have activated, saving her life. Therefore, she rubs its belly while thinking about her ability. But suddenly, the sky rumbles and rain begins to fall, and she reacts while also thinking about what to do next since the sun will soon set and the cold will get worse. And just then, she starts coughing. And in response, the lion looks at her and begins to whimper. We continue as our girl looks at the Black Lion and asks what it is, and then she realizes it wants to go inside. Yet she quickly refuses and reminds herself that only direct descendants of the Imperial family can enter. She thinks about how it only wants shelter from the rain, but the divine power inside is too strong and will harm it, so she decides they should look for another place. However, just when she is about to turn back, it suddenly snatches her sword and runs straight toward the building. And immediately, she shouts after it while thinking that such a huge lion is unbelievably stubborn. Nevertheless, she runs after it and gives in, saying they will go in but must come back out soon. And so they both enter as the inside is very dark, and she lights the place with flint while telling it to stay close, and it responds with the sound. As they walk deeper, she thinks about how she is finally seeing a place she has only read about, and also notices how large it is, and even feels a strange warmth coming from inside. When she touches a mark on the wall, she realizes it is the Emperor's burial chamber, but suddenly it roars, and she calls out to it, asking what is wrong, and even wonders if it is angry as it keeps roaring and opens its blood-stained mouth, making her panic as she notices how badly it is bleeding. Then everything becomes more serious as Vivian realizes its condition has worsened so much that it is now bleeding, and she regrets coming inside even if it insisted. So she gently tells it they need to leave and asks if it can move, offering her support as she helps it stand. Suddenly, its eyes widen and it lashes out, slashing her with its paw, and she calls out to it, asking if it is because of her injury while brushing it off as nothing serious and trying to calm it down so it will not be scared. Then she tells it to come closer again, but instead it begins to growl, and at that moment we can feel the tension rising as things start to slip out of control. We watch closely as the Black Lion, who is Aslan, suddenly begins to think that, in this state, he will only end up seeing Vivian more. Because of that, he chooses to retreat and runs away, yet she immediately shouts for him to come back while chasing after him. At the same time, she realizes he is heading straight toward the burial chamber and wonders if he is panicking. So she calls out his name again as she dashes forward. Guards quietly appear behind her and watch her run ahead. Then she enters a room, and instantly her eyes widen as she feels something change. She thinks about how she felt nothing outside, yet now a deep sense of dread fills her. Moreover, she notices the emblem above the burial chamber and recognizes it as the symbol of House Eleonora. As a result, she recalls how the sword that defeated the devil and this emblem were given to the founder who stood beside the first emperor as a trusted companion. He was the only one who believed in him and fought with him. Seeing it here makes her wonder if the emperor wished to stay with that comrade even in death. However, as she clutches her chest, she feels it tighten. She questions if her tuberculosis is acting up, or if it is simply the heavy feeling of standing before a grave. Just then, she hears footsteps and turns around to see the Black Lion again, roaring as it returns. She feels relieved and speaks to it, thinking it must feel suffocated here and suggesting they leave. However, just when it seems calm, everything changes. It suddenly charges toward her, making her shout. Yet instead of attacking her, it moves past and attacks the guards behind her. In that moment, her eyes widen as she finally notices them. One of the guards shouts to capture the Black Lion alive. Immediately, everything becomes clear to her. She realizes they want to capture Aslan and that they must be Johanna's men who have been deceiving her all along. Moreover, she understands that he sensed this danger and saved her again, just like before in the cave. I knew something felt off. This kind of setup is too obvious now. Consequently, the tension rises as she acknowledges the situation. Yet this time, there is one key difference. That is, she now has her sword. We can feel that things are about to turn. We watch as our girl suddenly steps forward and tells the Black Lion to get out of the way. Without hesitation, she rushes in with her sword and begins to fight the guards one by one. She takes them down as they panic. Moreover, the guards shout in shock as they question who she is and why they did not deal with her earlier. They realize too late that she can fight. Just when one of them orders her to be killed, the Black Lion charges in and cuts him off before he can finish. As the fight continues, she thinks deeply about Johanna and understands that he fears Aslan. Because of that fear, he is trying to trap him. The curse passed down also gives him the power to defeat the devil, and therefore, killing him would only pass the curse on. Consequently, she realizes they plan to bind him with dark magic and keep him as a living corpse. This is even though he has done nothing wrong and never wanted any of this. Even everything he built came from his struggle to survive. This is just cruel. He really didn't deserve any of this. Then, after all the guards are taken down, she drops her sword. She is still filled with anger as she reflects on everything. At that moment, the Black Lion comes closer, and she gently pats its head. She says she sees it has calmed down. Although she calls it stubborn, she decides not to force it to leave anymore. She even warns that this place is not safe, yet still chooses to stay by its side. However, just when she is about to keep talking, she suddenly feels pain and collapses to the ground. Immediately, the Black Lion reacts in shock. Aslan's thoughts return, filled with worry as he calls out to her and fears she has pushed herself too far again. He begs her to open her eyes. Then, as he watches her lying there, he realizes she has only passed out and fallen asleep. Since the situation is bearable, he decides they should stay there for the night because she is clearly exhausted. As time passes into the night, she suddenly wakes and speaks in a light tone. She laughs as she talks about taming a lion and even thinks of bragging about it to Alex. Yet, in contrast, he looks at her and gently responds that she may not be able to do that. Then he leans in and kisses her. Okay, I did not expect that ending at all. That just changed everything. In the next moment, we see Aslan looking at Vivian as he says that the curse broke sooner than he thought. At the same time, he thinks deeply that it is thanks to her. She forgave him and did not give up on him. As a result, the Rampart's curse must have calmed down. Moreover, he reflects on how small and delicate she is, so much that he was afraid he might hurt her. Yet at the same time, he also wished she would not turn away from him. Therefore, he could not bring himself to run, and he admits in his heart that it is selfish. Even though he hides who he is and causes her pain, he still wants something deeper, not just to stay like this. As if that was not enough, he admits the truth that he wants her heart and wants to go as deep into it as he can. Although he knows he must part with her someday because she does not belong with a monster like him, he still cannot let go. Then he holds her hand, unable to release it. This kind of confession is dangerous, but also kind of real at the same time. Then, as the story moves forward, the next morning comes. We see Vivian walking in the forest as she yawns and stretches. She says that maybe her ancestors were looking out for her since she managed to sleep warmly even on the hard stone floor. Although she is still a little tired. However, as she walks further, she notices some nobles gathered. She begins to wonder where Aslan is since he was not there when she woke up. She also worries that his body has not healed yet, so she wonders if he is okay. Suddenly, she spots him in the crowd and calls out his name. Then she walks up and asks if he is all right. But immediately she covers her mouth and thinks that she should pretend she does not know he turned into a black lion. So instead, she says she got lost while looking for him yesterday. He then responds by saying he is sorry and tries to explain. But before he continues, she reacts. Then he notices her wound and asks if she is okay. This makes her look at it and quickly say she must have fallen while searching for him. Then he asks if she can walk. She says, of course not, and even points out that he does not know healing magic. But he answers that he will learn. Then he uses his jacket, tearing it to wrap her injury carefully so it does not get infected. As she watches him do this, she thinks that he is wrapping it very well. Even though he was not aware of his black lion form, maybe he knows deep down that he caused the wound. She even feels a small tickle before he says he is done, and she thanks him. We see Aslan suddenly tell Vivian to hop on his back. She is shocked, but before she can refuse, he lifts her and starts walking. She insists she can just ride the horse. Yet he explains that he lost it. He admits he makes mistakes too, and that being around her seems to make them worse. Especially because he could not keep his promise and made her wander in the woods alone yesterday. As she holds him tighter, she thinks that everything from being cursed to turning into a magical beast was not his fault. Then he reveals that he carries a secret she could not imagine. That is why he arrived late. He begins to speak further, but she cuts him off. She says it is fine to keep it hidden, and that sometimes a secret left long enough may even become the truth. His eyes widen. She immediately thinks, oh no, did I dig too deep? Then she urges him to pick up the pace, which makes him laugh and agree to try. Later, at the temporary lodge, Aslan instructs the butler to call the Imperial doctor and draw a warm bath. She notices that this lodge is different from the ones she has stayed in before. As she lies down on the soft bed, she thinks that the stubborn lion has given her comfort. She also thinks that her brother might already be worried, but the bed is so warm she cannot resist. She playfully asks if they are going to share the room for the week of the hunt. She realizes she will be sleeping, bathing, and changing in the same space with him. He explains that he could not bear to let her sleep in the outdoor barracks and offers to take the couch himself if she is uncomfortable. She immediately realizes he gave her the room out of consideration for her condition. She apologizes for speaking without thinking. He tells her not to worry and to make herself comfortable. He notes that the room is big enough for 2 people. Aslan leans over Vivian, reminding her that the room is big enough for 2 people, and she teases him lightly, pulling his face closer as she asks if this arrangement is acceptable. She thinks that, indeed, the room is big enough for both of them and agrees, making him pull closer, just as a noise comes from the door. Before either of them can react, Alex barges in, shouting her name and asking about the engagement ceremony. Our girl, still lying on the bed, is startled, and Aslan looks confused, not understanding what Alex means. Then she reflects that Aslan had been planning a surprise proposal without her knowing, including the shoulder rules dance Dylan mentioned, and she thinks that she almost suffered the greatest humiliation in the history of the Empire. Laughing off the moment, she tells Alex to lead her to their barracks despite the long walk, ready to move on, while Aslan remarks that he let her get far too comfortable, and Dylan apologizes immediately. The scene shifts to the 4th day of the hunting tournament, where the Empress speaks to Jig, noting her own contentment and thinking in her mind that Lady Vivian Eleonora, once thought to be spoiled and relying on her family's prestige, has proven herself gifted and humble, and now she increasingly desires her as a crown princess. Johanna interrupts briefly, noting the Empress's thoughts about Vivian, and she smiles, explaining that a doctor in a foreign country discovered a cure for tuberculosis. Johanna confirms he has been trying to reach him, and the Empress hopes the news will make her happy, adding that he should build friendship with Duke Eleonora to recruit House Eleonora to their side. She then calls for Sarah to bring Vivian Eleonora, instructing her to be very respectful, and the maid responds obediently. Honestly, I would have said the same. Showing respect first sets the right tone. One might think, realizing the Empress's careful planning reflects her understanding of strategy and people. Outside, we see our girl looking exhausted, trying to catch her breath. She thinks about the unofficial day of rest during the hunting tournament and wonders how the Empress managed to stand for her. Her mind drifts to the fake doctor who claimed to cure tuberculosis. The thought chills her because the truth was that the doctor was a scam. She recalls how the original Vivian had gone mad with despair when the truth came out, taking her anger out on the innocent Iris and even trying to stab her, but Aslan had intervened brutally before tuberculosis could kill her. She shivers, thinking that this is the last episode where Vivian is still alive, and although she knows Aslan wouldn't hurt her now, the memory leaves her unsettled. Suddenly, she feels a strong grip on her shoulder and shouts, only to realize it is Aslan. He calls to her, worried that she didn't answer, and she feels a strange mix of guilt and irritation, thinking about how hospitable she had been to him, but also how annoying it was that he planned a proposal without asking her. Aslan asks if she will forgive him, promising to do anything she wants, and Vivian is struck by the sincerity in his voice. She realizes this is a rare chance, thinking to herself that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She presses him, reminding him that he said he would do anything, and her heart lightens at the thought. Vivian stares at Aslan, thinking how far he's come and realizing she can't waste this chance after all the trouble she's gone through, tiptoeing around him. Looking at him, she notices how miserable he looks, and she admits in her mind that every time she sees his face, it weakens her resolve. She clears her throat and demands that he tell her exactly what he did wrong, leaving nothing out. He admits that he almost caused her great humiliation and promises to make a finer proposal next time. She calls out his name, reflecting on how much of her life has been at the mercy of rumors, and wonders if he even understands why she's angry. After a pause, he confesses that he should have considered her first, and was a fool to let someone else's words guide him. Vivian thinks he must feel uncomfortable admitting all this, yet he does it anyway, showing a side of him she didn't expect. She removes her hand from his and says she can't forgive him just yet, setting a challenge. Catch a beautiful animal in the remaining 2 days of the hunting tournament, or she won't forgive him. She thinks to herself that even though he has skill, 2 days is too short, and smiles at the clever way she's getting a little revenge. Aslan accepts the challenge humbly, willing to forfeit the honor of victory if he fails, but then he suggests a counterproposal. If he wins the tournament, she must give him a kiss, following tradition. Vivian's mind races as she recalls the boldness of that tradition, where the winner offers glory to their loved one in front of everyone, and she can't help but admire his confidence even though she knows winning in 2 days is nearly impossible. She smiles at him. This is going to be interesting, knowing that she's setting him up for a challenge while also giving herself a chance to test how far he'll go for her forgiveness. Day of the hunting tournament arrives, and the crowd is in awe. Men around exclaim at the size of the catch, saying it must weigh over 10,000 pounds, and recalling how the Archduke Astaroth caught a huge white deer just a few days ago. The winner is clear to everyone, the Archduke. People begin congratulating him, praising his skill and strength. Our girl feels her mind spinning and drops her head, thinking she's doomed. Yet she reminds herself not to give up too soon because escape is her specialty. Then Aslan calls her name, announcing to everyone that she is his one and only fiancée, Vivian Eleonora. Her eyes widen at the sudden declaration as murmurs ripple through the crowd. He steps closer and leans toward her, asking if she forgives him. She responds, thinking to herself that she had been too smug, and agrees, feeling both excitement and nerves. He notices her hesitation with her lips and teases gently, making her admit she's never done this before, aside from a cheek kiss, and that the crowd makes her nervous. Before she can finish, he presses her lips against his, and the kiss holds them together as cheers erupt around them. Vivian realizes that everyone now sees their engagement is solid, and she wonders why her heart is pounding so fast, thinking it must be the festive mood, the Empress's attempted poisoning, and Aslan's new hunting record all mixed together. After the tournament ends, they return to Blackford, where she hopes for quiet and peace to recover from her wounds, yet she is immediately pulled into action. Staff swarm her, explaining that the banquet room needs all floors and walls replaced, chandeliers and windows updated, and they ask if she sees anything she likes in the catalog. Vivian stares at them, thinking, why am I dealing with madness as soon as I come back? She recalls how since arriving at the capital, she hasn't had time to rest due to her 18th birthday and coming-of-age ceremonies. Meanwhile, outside, Jesus observes the bustling scene and sees an opportunity. He notes that she's busy but thinks he can sneak in unnoticed among the many visitors and wonders if she will recognize him this time. Inside the office, we see Vivian still surrounded by many people as one of them presents fine items from abroad and asks what she thinks of a design, calling it the latest style. However, she feels overwhelmed and thinks she can no longer endure it, so she decides to play her card. Suddenly, she starts coughing, and Dylan quickly reacts, asking if she is okay and even offering to call the doctor. Nevertheless, she refuses and says she only needs rest, which makes him decide to send the merchants away. As a result, she feels relief and finally thinks she can breathe, even adding in her mind that they do not need to come back ever. Just when it seems things have calmed down, a small boy walks in, and she notices him as he introduces himself as an employee from Madame Scarlet's boutique, here to take her measurements. Dylan immediately offers to turn him away, yet she stops him and stares closely, realizing she has seen the brooch before. Then it clicks in her mind that it is the Eye of Truth that Jesus wears, just like in the novel, and she understands who he really is. Even though Dylan tries to send him away, she intervenes and says it is fine, adding that she called him and will take him upstairs, thinking that waiting for Madame Scarlet's boutique is long anyway, so this is a small price to pay. As they move into another room and the door closes, she speaks first, saying she did not expect him to come in person, especially in such a disguise. He responds that the leftover demonic energy gives him a headache and explains that the Archduke guards her like a rare treasure, making it hard for anyone but him to get close. He then relaxes on the couch and admits he expected her to see through him right away. While she thinks he is still as annoying as ever, this guy really doesn't change at all. Even so, she quickly gets to the point and asks if he has found a way to break the dark magic. He admits it will take more time due to an unexpected problem, which surprises her since she thought it would be easy for him. Then, shifting the topic, he says there is something he wants to ask, and brings up that the Devil Astaroth seems linked to the dark magic placed on her, explaining that he wants to trace it back to its source and asking if anything comes to her mind. As we stay with Vivian, we watch her sink deeper into thought, trying to piece everything together. She recalls the inverted pentagram she saw on Aslan in his lion form and realizes it looks similar to hers, yet it is not the same imprint described in the novel. Moreover, she reminds herself that such an imprint needs a bond between a beast and a human, something she believes she has never met. However, she then remembers what Jesus once said about the magic circle suppressing her tuberculosis, and she connects it to how her symptoms have lessened since discovering it. Consequently, she begins to question if this is really just a coincidence. And as a result, she considers that if two people share an imprint, they also share lifespans. That thought unsettles her, as she wonders if it means she will not die before Aslan, but also that if he dies, she dies too. Even though she lacks full knowledge, she senses Jesus knows more, so she decides to act carefully while pretending she knows nothing. She speaks to him calmly, saying she is not even sure when the magic circle formed and teasing him about coming all this way just to ask that, smiling as if to provoke him. Yeah, that one must have hit him a bit. He responds with disappointment and then reveals something shocking, explaining that the devil Astaroth had placed a scheme on House Eleonora. He further explains that the dark magic on her is incomplete because her pure Eleonora blood blocked it, since two types of dark magic cannot exist at once, making the later one fail. This shocks her, especially as she recalls her mother's direct Eleonora bloodline and her father's distant branch, realizing this was never in the novel. Frustration builds as she feels her plan to provoke him has failed, and she even thinks of dealing with him physically. But just then, a knock interrupts everything. Immediately, she reacts and calls out, wondering if it is Aslan, then quickly tells Jesus to hide. However, before anything can be done, he wraps the measuring tape around her as a warning, while they hear Aslan say he is coming in. As he enters, he asks about her condition after hearing from Dylan about her coughing earlier, but then he notices the boy taking her measurements. At the same time, Shizis quietly whispers that he already sensed his arrival due to the demonic energy, assuring her not to worry and that he will handle it. She feels tense, thinking about his boldness. This guy really has no fear at all. Then Aslan questions the situation, asking if he is from the boutique and what he is whispering about, and he smoothly answers that it is about her measurements. Even so, suspicion lingers as he recalls expecting an assistant but not a woman. So he questions his age and name, and he calmly responds that he is 16 and calls himself Miguel. He then explains that the boutique sends him because noble ladies prefer a cute and charming boy, calling it their trade secret. Vivian, watching this, admits in her mind that he truly looks like a handsome boy in this disguise, yet she also grows uneasy at how easily he adapts and acts. Meanwhile, she notices that Aslan does not seem pleased at all, and she begins to wonder if he already knows the truth behind this act. We stay with our girl as tension builds in the room, and she quickly realizes that someone like Aslan could easily see through Jesus' disguise, which makes the situation dangerous. As a result, she glares at him and silently urges him to leave. He then bows politely and tells him that if there are no more questions, he will take his leave. And as he turns to go, she lets out a quiet sigh of relief. However, just when it seems he is finally leaving, he suddenly calls out to her again, making her think he should just go already. Then he calmly says he will see her next time and asks her to take care, and she forces a light laugh, calling him a cute assistant. Meanwhile, Aslan only stares at him without a word before briefly responding, and once he is gone, he turns his attention back to her. He gently tells her not to overwork herself for her coming-of-age celebration and even offers to handle all the preparations if she wants. Yet she refuses, saying the celebration is hers, and he must be busy too. Still, she cannot help but notice in her mind that he seems kinder than usual, and before she can think further, he suddenly lifts her up and carries her to the bedroom, making her realize what he is doing. He then tells her to focus on her health and stay in bed, reminding her that what matters is not the celebration, but her. As he says this in a playful way, she smiles and tells him he should take care of himself too, which catches him off guard and makes him pause. When she asks what is wrong, he admits he does not know how to respond, and she teases him, asking if he is shy and guiding him on what to say instead. He follows her advice, though clearly embarrassed, and thanks her for her concern while holding her hand, thinking to himself that it feels a bit awkward. She praises him for it. I'm not going to lie. That was actually kind of cute. And after that, he steps out and closes the door. Alone, he begins to reflect, admitting he is not used to moments like this, yet it does not feel bad, and he realizes he is slowly changing because of her. His thoughts drift back to 15 years ago when he first arrived at Blackford after being cast out, remembering the cold snowstorms, the empty castle, and the smell of his own blood, along with Johanna's harsh words that it was the perfect place for a beast like him. However, as he looks around now, he notices signs of her everywhere, and he cannot help but wonder when she managed to change this once empty place with her small presence. We shift back to Aslan as his thoughts are suddenly interrupted by the butler, who respectfully calls out to him and presents an invitation from Prince Johanna. As he takes the letter, he recalls the moment when Vivian had politely turned down Johanna, saying she had other matters but would accept another time. And this memory makes him realize that the prince is clinging to words that were only courtesy. As a result, he coldly tells the butler to tear it up. Yet the butler hesitates and warns that ignoring it repeatedly may bring consequences, even suggesting that she should send a proper refusal. However, he cuts that down immediately, insisting he will handle everything and that she is sick and should not be bothered with trivial matters, and the butler agrees and leaves. Meanwhile, inside the room, we return to Vivian as she sits and calls his name softly before sinking into deep thought. She reflects on how he pushed himself in the sacred forest and continues to strain himself with training and duties, wishing he would take better care of himself. Then her thoughts grow darker as she recalls the original story, wondering if that same nature is what led him to give himself to the devil without hesitation, and she quickly rejects that outcome, realizing that if he dies, she dies too. Consequently, she begins forming a plan to survive, remembering that in 3 years he will face his final battle against Johanna, who becomes emperor, and she knows she must make sure he wins before that. As she thinks further, she lists his strengths, from his military power to his wealth and sword skill, yet she identifies his weak point as his poor reputation among the nobles. She struggles to find a way to fix it, searching for a solution, and then suddenly reaches a bold idea that instead of fixing his image, it may be easier to bring his enemies down instead. Determined, she decides to act, knowing she cannot rely on Hezes to solve everything in time and must protect her own life. As a result, she concludes she must go to Prince Johanna and even considers using that same method again, accepting that she has no other choice. Yeah, she's really playing a risky game now. But then, the next morning, the scene turns urgent as her pills fall to the ground while she coughs badly, and Dylan rushes to her side asking if she is okay. Struggling to breathe, she speaks, and he immediately offers to do anything to help. She confirms this and leans in to whisper a request into his ear, asking him to secretly prepare a carriage without Aslan knowing, because she is heading to the Imperial Palace. Now we see Vivian with Dylan. He starts to speak, but she quickly cuts in and says the Crown Prince told her about a doctor who can cure her tuberculosis. She adds that she planned to refuse, but the pain became too much. So he repeats that it is the Crown Prince. Then she confirms it. As a result, he hesitates before admitting that they have also been trying to reach that same doctor. She reacts in surprise while he explains it was not done with bad intent. He says his master only wanted to be careful. However, she begins thinking this changes things. If Johanna reaches that fake doctor first, it will be a problem. So she reasons that the doctor must end up under him. Reputation works like a scissor where one falls and another rises. Therefore, when the fake doctor is exposed, it will damage him greatly. So she decides she must go to the Imperial Palace first. Then she asks him to let her go and promises to explain everything later, even as she coughs. Although he hesitates, he finally agrees. Then in the next scene, we follow Vivian as she meets Johanna. He welcomes her and says he has been waiting. He even felt slighted since she did not reply. She bows and apologizes while thinking she never received any invitation. Then she states she came to ask for a favor, which makes him listen. She brings up the doctor who can cure her illness and asks to meet him. But he questions if that is necessary, since he plans to bring the doctor himself and make him the Imperial doctor. Although she shows gratitude, she raises concerns for other patients and whether they will still have access. As she carefully guides the talk, she thinks about the risks and angles, until he understands and offers a new plan to appoint the doctor, but place him at Minerva Public Hospital. Right there, she realizes her goal is achieved. That place serves the upper class and will increase the damage when the truth comes out. So she thanks him, while he wishes her recovery and ends the talk. In the next scene, we see our girl stepping out of the carriage. She finally thinks everything worked, and all that is left is to wait. I think this plan is actually clever. She really turned the whole situation in her favor. Now we follow our girl as she keeps thinking that the doctor would never refuse Johanna's offer. Just as she stays lost in that thought, Dylan calls out to her, and she answers. Then he carefully says he hopes she forgives him for speaking. Yet he explains that the Crown Prince and his master are not in good terms because of Astaroth's cause. She calmly replies that she already knows. However, he continues and suggests it would be better if he were the one to explain things instead. So she calls his name and pauses. Then she thinks he is right, because it would be easy for Aslan to suspect something between her and the Crown Prince. As a result, she thanks him and says she trusts him to explain it well. He proudly places his hand on his chest and tells her to leave it to him. She quietly wonders if everything will be fine, but decides to trust him for now. Honestly, at that moment, I would just hope he doesn't mess things up after all that confidence. Then, in the next scene, we see Vivian in her room. Someone says they are coming in, and she realizes it is Aslan. As he enters, she notes he is already inside. Then he greets her, and she tells him to go ahead. Yet both sit on the bed in silence. This makes her uneasy as she starts thinking he is too quiet. She wonders if Dylan said something wrong and even doubts her trust in him. However, he finally speaks and says it is infuriating. At once, she feels like she is finished. Yet he continues, and admits she has been struggling while he failed to give her faith in him. He adds that he heard everything from Dylan and feels too ashamed to even look at her. This shocks her, as she realizes the silence was guilt. She even thinks Dylan did well, so she then apologizes for going to the Crown Prince out of her own selfishness. But he reassures her and tells her to focus on getting better. As a result, she brightens and thanks him, promising to recover. He smiles slightly, reaches out, and touches her face while saying he is glad. She feels relieved, yet strangely nervous, as if something is stirring. This feeling pulls her back to when they kissed before. Just as that thought lingers, he softly calls her name, bringing her back. She calls his name in her mind as he looks into her eyes and holds her face. This kind of moment would make anyone's heart race, no matter how calm they try to act. Now we stay with Vivian as she locks eyes with Aslan. At that moment, she starts to feel confused. She wonders what is going on and why his mood keeps changing so suddenly. Although she reminds herself that no one else is around, so he has no reason to act like before, her heart still races. She feels like she cannot handle it. As a result, she quickly decides to change the subject. She brings up what she heard from Dylan about trying to contact the doctor. This makes him respond that he should not have spoken about it. She reacts in surprise, but quickly denies any issue. She even thanks him because now she knows how much he has been looking out for her. Hearing that, he simply accepts it. She keeps thinking he might be upset that Dylan reached the doctor first, yet she feels relieved since it proves he has nothing to do with that fake doctor. Then he calls her name and tells her he must leave at dawn in 3 days for business at the Imperial Palace regarding his northern territory. He apologizes that he cannot stay by her side. However, she reassures him not to worry. She tells him she understands how hard he works and hopes things go well. She even reminds him not to push himself too much. He agrees. After that, she tells him to sleep early, and he says maybe he should. But deep down, he thinks she is caring for him despite her own condition. Yet, he still gives in to his base desires, seeing himself as nothing more than a filthy beast. I think he is being way too hard on himself when he is clearly trying. Then, 3 days later, we move with Vivian as she sits reading a newspaper. She starts to think it is strange that there is no mention of the doctor's credentials. This leads her to realize Johann might have been more careful than she expected. He likely considered the chance that the doctor may not meet expectations. Yet, even with that thought, she refuses to sit back and watch. So she immediately gives orders to prepare for a trip to the hospital. She asks that only Dylan escort her while Sophie prepares her dress. As everything is set in motion, she quietly concludes that with Aslan away, this is the perfect chance to do what she needs. Now we follow our girl as the carriage arrives at the hospital. Dylan announces their arrival. This makes her look around and wonder if this is really the place. She questions why nobles come here even though they have private doctors, yet she reminds herself she came prepared. As she walks in, people begin to whisper about her. Some are surprised by her simple look, while others quickly point out that her dress is actually a very expensive piece made by a well-known artisan. As a result, he leans in and questions if that dress is really enough, since it looks plain despite all the attention. However, she smiles and thinks that most people would think the same. Only top nobles can recognize its true value. Therefore, she plans to find someone like that, start a talk, and spread the rumor about the field doctor and the crown prince. But as if that was not enough, everyone in the room is staring at her. This makes it hard to pick a target. Honestly, at that moment, it becomes even more complicated. Then, in the next moment, Dylan steps forward and welcomes Vivian while offering to escort her upstairs. She quickly thinks this might work better for her plan and agrees. As they move, she notices the place is even more grand and filled with well-known figures from gossip circles. Among them, she spots Countess Ivana and decides she is the perfect target. Yet just when she is about to act, he calls her to sit. This ruins her approach and even risks offending another lady nearby. As she realizes the woman is Marchioness Bastian, she quickly bows and apologizes for the scene caused by him. The lady kindly accepts it and praises such loyalty. This makes her thank her and even think she is just as kind as described. But then the lady adds that the Duke must care for her deeply, since such a knight guards her. This makes her pause and question it in her mind. She even thinks he might be using him to watch her. Just then, the door opens and a man enters, greeting her. As she responds politely, she starts to wonder if he's the fake doctor. Then he introduces himself as Juan and greets her properly. At that point, this must be the moment everything starts to unfold. In the next moment, we see Vivian speak up. She says that since Crown Prince Johanna recommended Juan, she is hopeful he can help her. As if that was not enough, Countess Ivana reacts with surprise. She asks if the Crown Prince really recommended him. Vivian calmly explains that he was simply being thoughtful since they are about to become family. This makes the Countess say she feels envious. However, We also get to know from her thoughts that hearing that word feels almost funny. She already knows the truth. Soon, the whole empire will see that he is a fraud. At that point, you can't help but think, this is about to get messy real fast. A few hours later, she receives a drug from Juan. Yet instead of the fake medicine from the novel, she realizes it is only a simple supplement. So she carefully recalls how the real fake drug should look. It has a faint rosy color and an addictive effect. It eases pain at first, but slowly traps the user. She remembers how the original version of herself suffered from it. Therefore, she concludes that because of Johanna's recommendation, he must have been cautious this time. This creates a new problem. She now needs a sample of that fake medicine to expose him. Moreover, Dylan interrupts her thoughts to ask if something is wrong. She brushes it off. Then she cleverly shifts the topic by saying she feels uneasy about being rude to Marchioness Bastian earlier. This makes him apologize. She notes that his remorse seems real, yet she quickly forms a plan. She realizes that Marchioness Bastian likely received the fake medicine since she has no ties to the Imperial family, so she decides to swap their medicines. She calls him again and asks him to deliver fine wine with a letter requesting a visit. He agrees firmly. This makes her think she is trusting him with this. Consequently, the next day, she receives a quick reply inviting her to afternoon tea. When Aslan hears of it, he shows concern since there is no connection with House Bastian. But she insists it is a good way to return to high society. He even offers to get acquainted with the husband to help her build a bond. She accepts while thinking it may help. He goes further to provide details about Celia Bastian. He mentions her age and her marriage of 10 years to the Marquis. He notes their good relationship and her insecurity about having no children. She decides to avoid mentioning that. With all this in mind, she prepares to go ahead with her plan, carrying the medicine she intends to swap. This plan is risky, but also kind of genius. Now we are taken to Celia Bastian's mansion. As soon as Vivian arrives, Celia warmly says she came early and thanks her for accepting the invitation on short notice. In response, Vivian politely says the gratitude is all hers. She even repeats it before offering a gift. She explains that the leaves are from the eastern region of Valdeva, and that, although it is not much, she hopes it will be accepted. In turn, the lady reacts with delight. She calls it a precious gift and asks her to wait so she can bring a dessert that matches the tea. Then she tells the maid to guide her to the drawing room. The maid agrees and leads the way. As we follow along, we notice Vivian quietly observing. She thinks that Marchioness Bastian's room is not far from the drawing room. Therefore, she just needs the head maid to leave. Once she sits, the maid politely says she should call if she needs anything. Our girl dismisses her with thanks. However, immediately she begins to cough. This makes the maid worry and ask if she is all right. Vivian responds that she cannot find her cough medicine and always carries it for moments like this. This prompts the maid to rush off to check for emergency medicine. At that moment, Vivian glances around and admits in her thoughts that pretending to cough might actually make her condition worse. She thinks she should try another method next time. Consequently, the moment she's alone, she quickly moves. She stands up and walks into Marchioness Bastian's room. She thinks that medicine is usually kept on the vanity. Then she looks around searching for it until she finally spots it. Right there, she sees the medicine and decides to act. She sets aside the fake medicine she obtained earlier and prepares to swap it with the eye supplements she brought. They are carefully dyed the color of a dry rose and labeled for eye health. All this while, she is thinking of Marchioness Bastian. However, just when it seems like everything is going smoothly, she suddenly hears her name called from behind. In that instant, she freezes as she recognizes the voice. You can almost feel the tension rising. This is exactly where things start going wrong. In the mansion, we see Vivian startled as Celia appears behind her, asking about her coughing and looking concerned over how pale she seems. She quickly covers up her actions and assures her that she is fine, thinking with relief that Marchioness Bastian didn't catch her in the room and that her room was further from the drawing room than expected. Then Celia hands over medicine made by her family doctor, instructing her to breathe slowly, and Vivian internally wonders why she is personally giving it instead of having servants do it, feeling guilty for pretending to be sick. I would have felt the same guilt in her place. A few hours later, at the tea party, the conversation shifts as nobles admire the tea from Valdeva, commenting on its beautiful color while she internally wonders why she is even there, and reflecting that her plan to reintroduce herself to high society has been complicated by the fake doctor and the coming-of-age preparations. She considers using a seizure as an excuse to leave. Yet she recalls Celia's kind words about her coughing ceasing, and she thinks again about how genuinely kind Celia is, which softens her thoughts. Then the conversation turns to compliments from the other ladies, praising the tea and her care in selecting it. They criticize the dessert as interfering with the tea's fragrance, and she thinks to herself that the dessert is fine with the tea, finding their way of talking odd but amusing. Celia apologizes for misjudging the dessert, but the nobles assure her that their advice is meant to help. leaving Vivian quietly reflecting on their kindness and thinking of ways to continue navigating this high society scene. Celia agrees with the other ladies, and our girl internally wonders why she is letting them walk all over her, thinking that she doesn't really fit into high society. Then one of the nobles brings up the doctor from the eastern continent, and another remarks that he is quite cute and that he treated her on the recommendation of the crown prince. She responds that his treatments were indeed very effective, while in her mind she feels bad for Celia, but knows she has to play it safe for now, thinking that if she causes a scene, all the effort to repair Aslan's reputation will be wasted. The conversation continues with suggestions for Celia to visit the hospital, even joking about conceiving a child. And Vivian notices that they are using her connection to the Imperial family to manipulate Celia, thinking that high society truly operates in a pathetic way and that she should stay out of it. As the nobles continue speaking, offering advice, and subtly mocking, Vivian keeps telling herself to stay quiet, until one comment about embarrassing themselves in front of her finally makes her break. She tells them to shut their mouths, scolding them for being an embarrassment and mocking their ambition, when they protest and warn that word could reach the Imperial family. She cuts them off, daring them to go ahead and thinking that they have no right to step into the palace or presume their place, asserting her standing clearly. At Madame Bastien's manor, Vivian finally speaks up to the nobles, questioning why they all look so soft-faced when she is only offering advice and pointing out that they come from humble families with low rank. When one dares to warn her about consequences, she boldly challenges them, thinking in her mind that they have no chance standing against her brother, Duke Eleonora, or her future husband, the Grand Duke of Blackford. She notices one of the ladies thinking that she must be the rumored Queen Bee and the villainess of the Eleonora, and she makes herself clear about what she truly wants, causing them to fall silent. Immediately, she calls out to Celia, and one by one, the nobles apologize, but she pushes further, telling them kneeling is the only way to show sincere apology. When Celia tries to intervene, Vivian quietly tells her to watch and let her handle it, offering the nobles a choice to kneel now or face the consequences, asserting her authority and control over the situation. A few days later, in the indoor garden of the Imperial Palace, the audience sees Crown Prince Johanna and the Empress discussing the incident. She asks about Lady Vivian, and he explains how she forced the ladies to kneel at Madame Bastien's manor, confident that she acted to protect soft-hearted Celia from petty social climbers. The Empress reflects that Vivian has been distressed by the malicious rumors circulating through the social pages and decides she deserves kindness, recalling how Vivian saved her life twice. When the butler asks for her orders, she replies to handle things as seen fit, noting that the nobles causing trouble are likely just from the lowly family. However, she expresses concern for Marquess Bastien, who loves his wife dearly and would not stand for the indignity she suffered, recognizing his position as Chief Justice with immense authority and steadfast principles. In the Imperial Palace, the Empress voices her worry that the incident with Madame Bastien might push the Marquess to take the hand of that vile beast. Johann quickly reassures her that even if gratitude clouds the line between duty and favor, it won't matter because he will stand beside Vivian in the end. The Empress nods, and he adds that good news will come soon, telling Juan to do his best to cure her. Meanwhile, in another scene, Aslan stands by the curtains, lost in thought as he recalls Dylan mentioning the serfs from Alvaru fleeing to Blackford, which the local lord claims is an infringement on his property. He dismisses the complaints as garbage and decides he cannot leave the capital because of Vivian. Walking into her room, he sees her lying on the bed and wishes he could go north with her, but knows she has not been well since returning from Madame Bastien's house, likely because of the rumors spreading in the capital. He fumes over not being able to find those responsible, realizing that only Johann could have orchestrated such a scheme to isolate him in Blackford while taking Vivian for himself. He thinks about how Vivian is his one and only fiancée, and that no one can interfere with that bond, determined never to let anyone take her. As he watches her, she stirs slightly, and he chastises himself for worrying over a sleeping person while noticing her smile. He leans down and kisses her head, thinking this must suffice for now, but promising that when the time comes, they will truly be together. Suddenly, she opens her eyes and calls his name, Aslan, breaking through his resolve and bringing everything into the present. The new day begins with the maids bustling about, preparing Vivian, and one of them informs her that Aslan wants to have breakfast in her room today. She's surprised, thinking about how busy he has been, and that he didn't go to the palace, and then remembers the previous night. She wonders why he came to her room at night, whether it was to chastise her for the scene at Madame Bastien's house, and scolds herself for poking her nose into things she shouldn't have. Determined to be on her best behavior, she keeps slapping herself, muttering that she is a stone. Aslan's voice breaks through, startling her, and she stumbles, but he quickly supports her, apologizing for scaring her. She reassures him it's fine, already plotting in her mind to make him feel sorry for her again. He notices she looks thinner and suggests going to the hospital together, which makes her suspicious that he wants to spy on her, but she reluctantly agrees, realizing she has no other choice. At the Minerva Public Hospital, the doctor trembles while examining her, which confuses Vivian, and soon he finishes the checkup. A maid moves to fix her dress, but Aslan insists on helping, asking her to turn around, and she complies. The maids whisper in awe about the second prince personally assisting his fiancée. On the way back, he suggests stopping somewhere since they haven't gone out together in a while, making her wonder how he finds time to watch over her. Before leaving, he asks her to wait outside while he speaks privately to the doctor, and she agrees, curious but allowing him the moment. Juan, the Imperial physician, sweats nervously as Aslan speaks to him, praising his sterling reputation. He feels the weight of the prince's gaze and knows Vivian's life is in his hands. Aslan internally questions Juan's demeanor, wishing his fiancée's doctor acted with more confidence, yet he decides to give him the benefit of the doubt. He recalls the promise he made to Vivian when she said she would spend her life alone, vowing to cure her disease and protect the smile that took so long to see. Aslan asks him to cure her completely. Though Juan warns there are no guarantees, the prince nearly loses control, punching the wall in frustration before apologizing and demanding a clear commitment. Juan sweats more, realizing the stakes. The second prince and crown prince are watching closely, and his cover as a former trickster doctor is at risk. He remembers his past, how experimenting with a rose-colored synthetic dye led him to fake cures, and he debates whether to use his untested medicine on Vivian to prove himself. I would have panicked too. Meanwhile, our girl encounters Marquis Bastion, who introduces himself politely. She greets him, but inside she panics, thinking she's in serious trouble and muttering that she's doomed. Our girl is startled when she runs into Marquis Bastion at the hospital, and her mind races, blaming herself for the trouble she caused at his house and fearing his anger. He asks if she is currently being treated, and she explains that her session just ended. Noticing her concern, he mentions his wife and presents her with medicine from their family doctor, packed by his wife because she knew it would help, and Vivian thanks him for the thoughtful gesture. Then he brings up her coming-of-age celebration, asking if she has chosen a maid of honor, and she is surprised he would mention such a topic. She explains that she has been away from high society due to her illness and is unsure whom to ask. He suggests Celia, insisting it would delight her, and Vivian agrees to send someone to Marchioness Bastion soon. As he leaves, she wonders about his words regarding the Northwest, but concludes that if it will be resolved, it must be for the better. Shortly after, Aslan arrives and asks about her conversation with the doctor, and notices what she is holding, learning that she has arranged for a second maid of honor for her ceremony. 3 days later, Vivian prepares to visit Madame Scarlet's boutique for her coming-of-age preparations, and has already sent a letter to ask Celia to be her maid of honor. She reflects on how surprising it is that Marquis Bastion brought this up first, given his neutral political stance, and wonders if this might hint at a change in his stance. Iris notices her thoughts and asks what she is thinking, and Vivian thanks her for agreeing to be her maid of honor, noting how devoted Iris is as her only baby sister. Vivian prepares for her coming-of-age ceremony with Iris by her side. Iris confirms she is only there to help pick a dress, though Vivian knows she has other intentions. She warns her companion that Madame Scarlet's boutique doesn't just have ordinary dresses, and stepping inside, both Dylan and Iris are amazed at the sight. Dylan is particularly impressed by a luminescent dress. Madame Scarlet explains that it is a prototype of a magic dress designed to shine for a certain period using light magic. Iris admires its beauty, and the designer shares her excitement at finally showing her creation to Vivian, who politely responds. Madame Scarlet then whispers about a mage waiting for her, and she directs Vivian to a room at the end of the corridor. Inside, Jesus greets her, recalling how her introduction of the magic dress to the guild helped their business thrive. Vivian remarks that it's a win-win, as she can't meet him without Aslan spying on her, and he asks how he can help. She searches her bag for the medicine made by Dr. Juan, explaining that she doesn't trust it and wants him to analyze the ingredients. Jesus questions if it was personally prescribed, and she confirms. Our girl reflects on how Juan had been giving her fake medicine for some reason, and though it didn't disrupt her plans at the Bastion estate, she vows to expose him eventually. Jesus begins analyzing it, noting its unusual color, and assures her it shouldn't be difficult because the guild has mages from different continents. Vivian feels relieved and offers to pay whatever is necessary to have another mage examine it, but Jesus refuses, saying he would rather not. Vivian is puzzled, thinking to herself, questioning why he would refuse such a request. In this moment, we watch as Vivian questions Jesus, since he had just said the task would not be difficult. She even brings up other forms of payment. However, he quickly denies that idea and explains that he cannot accept anything. His guild already owes her a great debt. This is the least they can do, so she finally understands what he meant all along. Moreover, he adds that she does not need another mage because he will handle it himself. This clearly surprises her since he is the chief of the guild. Yet he insists. He explains that the drug made by Juan sounds too strange, something that can make a dying person recover so fast. That alone makes it suspicious. At this point, we can feel the tension rising. She realizes this is exactly why she brought it to him. This one piece of evidence could shake the whole empire and even affect Johanna's position. Yet at the same time, he suddenly asks how long she has been taking the drug. This catches her off guard. It makes her wonder why he would ask such a thing. Then he advises her to stop taking it for a while. He explains that the magic circle in her body has already stopped her illness. He even offers to find another doctor if she is still worried. This moment hits differently. For once, he seems genuinely concerned for her. Even she notices it. It makes her question if he already knows something about the drug. However, she brushes it off and ends the meeting quickly. She says she still has to get her dress fitted while Iris and Madame Scarlet are waiting. As she leaves, he is left wondering why she is always in such a hurry, especially when he himself was looking forward to seeing her. In the next scene, we return to the boutique. Madame Scarlet shows her fabric options. She responds by asking for a dress that matches the necklace she bought for the ceremony. This leads to admiration from the others, especially Iris, who points out the love behind the gift. At the same time, Jesus quietly watches from the door. He is clearly affected by what he sees. That silent watching part already tells you everything without him saying a word. Then, as time moves forward, 2 weeks pass quickly. We learn that Celia has replied with a letter. She expresses her happiness and gratitude. She explains that her husband spoke on her behalf due to her shy nature. As a result, she gladly accepts the role. Now she will also stand as a maid of honor beside Vivian. Honestly, it feels like a calm before something big happens next. In this scene, we see Vivian seated with Iris and Celia as they discuss the coming-of-age ceremony. Right away, Celia suggests that the invitation should be in yellow instead of gold, since the event is also political. However, Iris questions this and points out that gold is the color of the Imperial family. She also mentions that the Imperial family does not attend nobles' ceremonies, even though Vivian is Queen Aslan's fiancé. Still, she insists that an invitation should be sent as a proper gesture to the son of the Empire. This makes her admit that everything about this is very complicated. Honestly, yeah, this kind of politics is already too much for me. Then Celia turns to Vivian and asks what should be done about the guest list. She calmly replies that she will think about it and inform her later. However, in her thoughts, we realize something deeper is going on. She reflects on how surprising it is that she is now on a first-name basis with her. At the same time, she thinks about Juan's rising reputation over the past 15 days. Sick nobles are suddenly returning to high society because of his so-called miracle drug. Even Johanna is being praised for discovering him. Yet she also notices signs of addiction. Because of this, she becomes determined not to let Celia take those dangerous drugs. This leads her to keep swapping them with safer ones, until Celia notices and asks what she's doing. She quickly covers up by saying she is fixing her makeup. Then, as the day ends, we move to Aslan's manor. Vivian enters her room feeling tired. She stretches and leans on the couch while saying she might have been working too hard. Even though her back pain has not worsened, it has not fully gone away. So she closes her eyes and calls for Emma. She thinks she might be coming down with a cold and asks for medicine. However, instead, she suddenly hears Aslan's voice. He tells her she has pushed herself too far. This startles her, and she calls his name. He calmly says he brought her medicine while placing it on the table. He advises her to rest for a few days since she has been too active, but she insists she is fine because the ceremony is close. Yet he disagrees. He points out that she just collapsed on the sofa while checking her temperature. Although she denies it and says her legs only hurt, he lifts her feet and confirms they are swollen. He asks if it hurts anywhere. In that moment, she feels both comfort and embarrassment at the same time. This makes her stutter. Then he becomes concerned and asks if he hurt her. As she tries to respond, she pauses in her thoughts. She realizes his touch made her react. As if that was not enough, he gently calls her name again. Then he asks if she wants him to take her to the bed. In this moment, we see our girl's eyes widen at what he says. Immediately, she turns her face away and insists she is fine. However, she quickly changes the topic and says she has something to discuss. She adds that she will go and change right away. Yet before she can leave, Aslan grabs her hand and reminds her that she is forgetting something important. Without delay, he makes her take the medicine, watching as she swallows it. In her thoughts, she reacts to the awful taste. She even wonders how Celia manages to take such a thing every day. As if that was not enough, he brings out another pill and tells her to take that one too. She obeys, opening her mouth. Only then does he tell her he will be waiting in his bedroom while she gets changed. However, just when we think it ends there, she suddenly realizes something is off. The taste turns sweet. It hits her that it is chocolate. This confuses her even more as she starts wondering why he is treating her like a child. although she brushes it off as her being too tired. Then, after she changes, both sit together. She brings up the issue of the guest list for her coming-of-age ceremony. She explains that it has become too long and she is worried. Yet he keeps looking at her in a way that makes her uneasy, until he says he does not know if he can hold back until the wedding. This makes her confused as she tries to figure out what he means. She even thinks it might be anger over how long she took. Still, she pushes forward and begins listing names, starting with Marquis Bastian. Then she points out how often he has been meeting with him lately. He confirms and explains that the Marquis helped him resolve the situation in the north. He even says she played a part in it. This makes her connect it back to what the Marquis told her earlier about a token of gratitude, even though she feels she did nothing. Moving on, she finalizes the guest list from his side and asks him to send word to House Eleonora. Then she brings up the last matter, which is inviting the Imperial family. Although she hesitates due to his strained relationship with them, he stops her and insists she should send it. He explains that failing to do so would put her in a bad position as the center of the event. He also reminds her that it is normal for them not to attend anyway. However, even with his reassurance, she cannot shake her doubt. She wonders if Johanna will truly stay away. She recalls how things went in the past and how he might appear uninvited to cause trouble between them. So she clenches her fists, realizing she cannot let her guard down no matter what happens. In this moment, we see Vivian place her hand on her head. Immediately, Aslan notices and calls out, apologizing for causing her stress. Without hesitation, he pulls her into a hug. He admits that when she is in pain, he does not know what to do. This makes her pause in confusion as she thinks it is not that serious. However, he continues and points out that she has only been asking about his guests. He gently reminds her that she must also have people she wants to invite. Yet she simply says she does not, except for her family and Celia. This leads us deeper into her thoughts. She admits that she cannot even remember who she used to be before the recondition. Every time she tries, pain hits her head and a chill runs down her spine. This makes it clear why she avoids it. Then he quietly accepts her answer. After some time passes, we see her asleep. He tucks her into bed while thinking about how exhausted she truly is. He realizes that even though she said she was fine, the weight of rumors and her desire to make the ceremony perfect must have pushed her this far. Yet she still found space to worry about him. That says a lot about her nature. Then, as he gently touches her cheek, he reflects on how she has always been the same, even in the past, always putting others first, despite her cold and distant image. As we follow his thoughts, we learn how he once tried to ignore his feelings but can no longer do so. Now he decides firmly that he wants to stand beside her, protect her, and make up for the time he neglected her. Especially at her coming-of-age ceremony, where he plans to stand proudly as her fiancé. However, just when the moment feels calm, he suddenly feels pain in his chest. He realizes that the demonic energy that had been quiet since the hunting festival might be returning, yet even with this, his focus shifts back to her when she softly calls his name in her sleep. This makes him smile as he wonders if her presence is the reason he no longer fears it as much. Then, lying beside her and holding her hand, he reaches a firm resolve. No matter what stands in his way, whether it is the curse or even the Imperial family, he will face it all. As long as she is by his side. As we move forward, we are told that because he is concerned for Vivian's health, Aslan takes over all the preparations for the coming-of-age ceremony. He puts in great effort. As a result, everything comes together smoothly. Before we know it, 15 days pass, and her 18th birthday finally arrives. In the next scene, we are in Vivian's room on the morning of the ceremony. Iris reacts with amazement, while Celia praises her beauty. She says she cannot imagine a more perfect star for the event. This makes Vivian feel shy, as she admits she is a little embarrassed. However, the praise continues. She is reminded that she will look even better later in the magic dress at the night banquet. This was promised to be perfected by Madame Scarlet. This builds even more excitement around the moment. Suddenly, there is a knock on the door. When the voice calls her name, Iris wonders if it is that acquaintance. But Celia quickly reacts to that word. Both of them decide to leave the room at once. They even tell her to enjoy her time with His Highness. This leaves her confused as she tries to stop them. However, she is left alone with Aslan. Immediately, she starts thinking he is spying on her again while he silently stares. This pushes her to quickly bring up dancing as a topic. She says she is worried she might step on her partner's foot after such a long time. However, he responds calmly by suggesting she practice now with her partner. Then he reaches out his hand and invites her to dance. This shocks her deeply because this is something he never used to do. Especially before the reincarnation, he always refused her requests. Even now, she starts wondering if this is only about appearance. It would look strange for an engaged couple not to dance. Definitely, a sudden change would make anyone suspicious. Even so, she decides to go along with it and places her hand in his. She allows him to lead. As they begin dancing, she realizes her body moves naturally. It is as if the skill carried over, just like her swordsmanship. He compliments her beauty, and she returns the compliment. She also notes the perfect weather and hopes the event goes well so his hard work is not wasted. He confidently replies that it will go well because she is the star of the celebration. Now we step into the grand ballroom as the ceremony begins. We see people gathering while taking in the sight of Blackford. One person speaks about how this is a famous place. Another adds that it opened its doors to outsiders in honor of Lady Vivian's coming-of-age celebration. As if that was not enough, they go on about the chandelier made of crystals from the eastern continent. They also mention the ceiling and walls made of Mediterranean marble. This shows just how grand everything is. Then a lady points out that all this is for her celebration and says the second prince must deeply cherish her. Vivian responds yes. However, in her mind, she reacts. She thinks she put him in charge and he made it 5 times more grand than she asked for. She recalls when Aslan said he would make it a little fancier and asked if she did not mind. Now she questions if this is what he calls little. This is not small at all. He really went all out. We can clearly feel her disbelief. However, just when we think everything is perfect, a voice from behind cuts through the moment. A lady mocks the idea of being cherished and claims the second prince is only being nice because of a huge inheritance. She even goes as far as calling him just a merchant now. Vivian thinks she can hear them clearly. She also wonders if these women were her friends before the reincarnation. As they approach, the red-haired lady greets her, and she responds politely. They continue by saying that even without contact, their friendship remains. They also bring up the rumors about her. She realizes they are exactly as described in the diary. They make hurtful comments and then act innocent. Therefore, she decides the best move is to ignore them. She smiles and tells them she did not know they were so interested in her and finds it flattering. Then she tells them to enjoy the party and walks away. Honestly, that was the perfect way to shut them down without giving them anything to use. She leaves them behind without letting them get what they wanted. As Vivian walks away, we see the two ladies begin to mutter among themselves. One wonders if she just snubbed them. The other adds that it takes some nerve for a terminally ill patient. Then the red-haired one continues by saying, "His Highness treats her well these days." They go on to answer themselves, saying, "Of course he does." They claim that if he only keeps this up for the short time left, everything will return to how it was. They even call him cruel for only now acting like a proper fiancé. As she hears all of this while walking, she thinks they have crossed the line. She even considers whether to kick them out or not. However, she only looks at them without acting. That alone makes one whisper in confusion about why she is not throwing a tantrum like before. However, just then, Aslan appears and asks what is going on. Their eyes widen at once. Vivian calmly responds that it is nothing, and that she was only catching up with acquaintances. Yet he says that from afar she looked upset. She brushes it off by saying he must have imagined it. She questions who would dare cross her here. Immediately, the two ladies decide to leave. They say something feels wrong. As she watches them go, she thinks they should not have provoked her if they were going to run away so quickly. She also suspects he came because he thought she might speak about the curse, but she notes she is not foolish enough to do that. Then he apologizes and says he may have invited the wrong people. She responds that it is fine and that she is more used to such things than he thinks. She adds that they have been put in their place and will now behave. But then she suddenly notices the hall growing noisy and wonders why. He points out that those were not the only unwanted guests. Just when we think we have seen it all, Johanna steps forward. He greets them after a long time, hands her a bouquet, and asks what she thinks of his surprise gift. Damn. Enjoying this so far? Comment part 2 below. Until next time, ciao!